All right. Hey, Facebook Live. We are live with Amanda and David and Jeanine. Let's all wave hi to everybody.
Hello, everybody. Hello.
We're getting.
Hello.
We have just a little bit of a late start this morning, just due to me and not everybody else. So we're going to jump right in. I want to encourage you, wiggle your finger over the share button to help us defeat the evil Facebook algorithm. Help us defeat the algorithm that keeps these amazing talks from being shared. And you can help us do that. So Jeanine is first up. We're going to escort David and Amanda back to the green room. And
Cool.
Jeanine, if you can frame your face just a little bit, if you can pull your laptop a little bit closer.
More.
There you go. That's going to be great. And the here's the bio that I see here for you, Jeanine. Jeanine Hoff is the founder of Where is the Sunshine, a 501c3 nonprofit organization dedicated to peer support for mental wellness. Jeanine is a 2016 TEDx Jacksonville speaker and presented at the Mental Health America's National Conference in 2017. And then your website is whereisthesunshine.com.
Yep.
And let's see here. Name of the talk is Where is the Sunshine? My Journey as a Mental Health Survivor. Any corrections on that? Or are we good to go?
No, I spoke at Mental Health America in 2017 and 2018.
And 2018. Okay. So
other than that, no, you're good.
Well, it just cut off, I have those limited characters, so it just said 2017 and 20.
Yeah.
That's why I do this. That's why I practice these things. So any questions before we jump in here, Jeanine?
No, I'm actually excited. I love doing these things.
Awesome.
These things are fun for me.
Aren't they great?
They
All
are.
right, love it. Well, we are live in 3, 2. We are live with Jeanine Hoff. Jeanine, are you ready to talk?
I am so ready to talk. I never stop talking. I'm always ready to talk.
Jeanine Hoff is the founder of Where is the Sunshine, a 501c3 nonprofit organization dedicated to peer support for mental wellness. Jeanine is a 2016 TEDx Jacksonville speaker and has presented at Mental Health America National Conference in 2017 as well as 2018. Jeanine Hoff, welcome to the talk.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Your talk is called, same as your organization, Where is the Sunshine? My Journey as a Mental Health Survivor. And you talk really about your story. You're very normal, hardworking, dedicated wife and mom and employee, and doing all the work that you can do, and you just weren't taking enough time for yourself because you had a mindset issue that's still very common. You thought it was selfish to put your own mental health and your own self-time first before all the other roles in your life. And like you said, it's like being on the plane. When that air mask comes down, if we're not putting it on our own face first, we're going to be passed out and a burden to everybody else on the plane. So please, Jeanine, take us behind the talk.
So, I've been a fan of TED Talks for a very, very long time. I think I first got exposed to them when I was working in education. And I thought it was such a great idea to have someone to stand up for, 10, 15 minutes and just put their ideas out there, and not so much their story, because anyone can be a storyteller, anyone can share their journey, but how you took your journey and then did something with it. I came at it from a perspective of not a victim, not someone who suffered, not someone who struggled, but as someone who did all that and then took action. I saw where the issues were. I saw where there were things lacking, where there were struggles. And I said, you know what? I'm going to take my own journey and use that as a springboard to become an agent of change, and not just, I started in our community, and then little by little I started, going bigger and bigger and bigger, and talking all over the place and traveling and that kind of thing. So, I mean, the TEDx was really just a launch pad for what I was going to do. And I mean, it's the gift that keeps on giving, I like to say.
Yeah, well, and this is news to Talk Universe, but I just recorded a how to create your own TED Talk course for nonprofits, NGOs, and volunteers.
Wow.
And one of the things that, I mean, you're a textbook because you've got this talk branded. It's the same name as your organization. It's really well thought through to rightfully give attention not just to the talk and spreading that around, but then you've got this life mission now and this organization. Did the talk come first and then the organization, or was it the organization then the talk? And what has happened for you since the talk?
I love that because I started first, I really just started an Instagram account because I just wanted to not only inspire people, but encourage people while encouraging myself. And that's, I think, the most, interesting thing about what we do talk about with peer support with mental health is you're not only helping other people, it's helping you heal. And so I started that, and it was a few months in, maybe about 6 months in, that I saw the application. I was like, oh, we have a TEDx in Jacksonville. I was like, who knew? And I applied and was accepted. And I was like, oh, I wasn't expecting that. And, I don't know how much you know about me, but my background is in theater and performance. And I spent many years in education. So for me to be in front of people telling a story and taking them on a journey, but also educating them and giving them information, that was kind of like right up my alley. So putting the whole talk together was pretty easy. From there, all of a sudden people just started sharing it and it got out there, and then people just started contacting me. It was so bizarre. I wasn't expecting it. I didn't do the talk because I thought anything would come of it other than I had something to share. And I wanted to share my story with people, and I didn't even think like, oh, the whole YouTube effect or any of that. I just thought, oh, here's people in my city. They might be interested in what I'm doing. And so I got up there. It was the first time they were in the historic Florida Theater, which was a much bigger venue than it had been previously. And I didn't know that going in. I only knew that after I was accepted. So I was like, oh, okay. So instead of, 300 people, it was 1,000 people. I was like, okay, I can do this.
You're right at home as a theater major. My gosh.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, I got this one.
Yeah.
But from there, all of a sudden, people just started asking me to speak, and then the media would contact me when something would happen. Like recently, when Anthony Bourdain and Kate Spade passed, they called me and said, "We need to interview you and talk to you. Have you talk about mental health and suicide prevention." I was like, "Oh, okay." I wasn't expecting all of that. When I say it's the gift.
And there goes Jeanine. We went from amazing conversation to big black square. Jeanine.
I still see me.
What happened to you, Jeanine?
I don't know. I still see me.
Oh, my word. Well, and now she is. Oh, there she is. We're bringing Jeanine back. This is why I have Lester, my talk ninja, to help me during times like this. So just as you were, did you know you turned into a black square in the middle of that?
Nope.
Yeah, we lost. All right. So you were just saying, after you gave your talk and you have this great organization that you were really building the ship at sea, you gave the talk, you gave the Instagram, then you gave the talk, applied to the talk, gave the talk. Then the organization really formally came around. And as you were doing this, because your talk went live, all the media outlets, when we have these tragic media suicides and things from mental illness or depression, you are now the go-to expert in your region of North Florida.
I was not expecting. I mean, yeah. And
it's the power of this vehicle of giving a TED Talk. It's powerful.
Yes. And with it, then I started being, asked to come to trainings, not only as a speaker, but as, an observer, as a learner, as someone, to build up my skills so that when I do speak about suicide prevention, as I do speak about mental health and mental wellness, that I do know what I'm talking about, that there's some, that it's legitimate, that I'm not just some random person off the street, as I like to say, and just, hey, look, this is my story, and, that kind of stuff. But it really, when I say it's the gift that keeps on giving, I really mean it, because people will say, I watched your TED Talk. And what's even more amazing is that, it was for me 3 years ago, it was 2016 or so, and people are only discovering it now or sharing it now. It's that's the amazing thing about the internet, I think, that when people are looking for something, and someone's, especially with mental health, they're not feeling well, they're depressed, they're struggling, the first thing they do is go online and research. And if you type in YouTube, mental health, mental illness, mental wellness, you get all these different options of videos and just things to watch to inspire you, to educate you. And I love that I'm part of that world now.
Yeah, well, and congratulations, you've earned it. And again, I mean, I love how you aligned it. And in your case, this is such an organic thing, because you really didn't have, if I'm understanding this correctly, you didn't have the formal organization until after you gave the talk. But in your case, one thing leads to another. And for so many people, it happens this way. You just take the baby step to the next thing, or maybe a giant step, but in hindsight, it looks like a baby step. And it's just so well aligned, and it really does a very good job. The vehicle of TEDx really validates you because of the amazing job and the very vulnerable job that you did talking about your own journey as a real go-to expert in mental health and all the challenges that happen, so that when these things happen in our culture, you are the one that is really the go-to expert. And that's really I think the intended result of this vehicle in hindsight, once we go out there and give a super transparent, vulnerable, impactful talk. But it happens in hindsight, and that's kind of the goal. I had to say that kind of carefully, because the temptation really for all of us, it would be great for you to speak to this as a fellow performing artist, as I also am, for performing artists like us, as well as just other entrepreneurs out there. We just want to, exploit whatever stage there is, frankly, without necessarily doing the really hard work of giving first and giving our best and our most vulnerable and most transparent, and then the best preparation that we can be. Can you take just a minute and try to, speak to that piece maybe better than I just did?
So it's very hard to explain, because when you do it, you think small. You think, okay, people are going to hear this. And now, I mean, more and more people are familiar with the YouTube effect. But for me, I never thought beyond that. I never thought that anyone outside of Jacksonville, Florida was going to hear about this, was going to know. It just wasn't in my brain. And I think it wasn't part of my goal. It really wasn't. If I had part of my goal, I don't think it would have been as effective. I was just someone who wanted to share what I went through, and I was comfortable with being the guinea pig. What was interesting is that had I really known the effect that people in Australia or New Zealand would contact me and talk about their mental health, I might have been a little bit more reserved, because what I did was, and most people don't go and say, hey, I have a mental health disorder. I lived with depression. I was suicidally depressed. Here's my story. Nobody does that, because there's so much liability with it. Everything from, it impacts your family. It impacts your colleagues, your friends. They think of you differently. And I just put it out there. I was like, here you go. Here's my story.
Yes, you did. I love it. I think that was the thing, Jeanine. I mean, just the energy that you bring. And it's such a sober, difficult, kind of almost taboo topic. And I've interviewed several other guests that speak to the topic, and it's great. You're definitely bring the most opposite energy to it. And I think that it's refreshing. And I think it also makes it very disarming in a good way. And you become very approachable because of that.
But this is how I always am. I'm always the person laughing and joking and smiling and wanting everyone to be happy and wanting them to be involved and feel engaged. I worked in development and did events, and I was working so many hours. And my whole thing was to make every single person in that room feel welcome and comfortable. And your piece is falling out. And that's how I want people to feel. And I didn't feel that way. I was the one not feeling that way. And I want people to see how I feel now and know that I was in the darkest of dark, and you can get better and you can be that person again. When I was in the thick of it, and it was a very long time, it was at least a good year, in it, I never thought I would be better. All I really believed was, this is my life from now on. This is how I'm going to be for the next 40, 50 years.
Well,
and now I look back on that, and when they say recovery is possible and all of that, I didn't believe it, even though every single person said it. And every single person who's a mental health advocate said it, not, other people. I just kind of accepted that this was my life from now on. And it's not that way. And I want people to see that you can get back to that happiness.
Yeah, well, we've been enjoying this conversation with Jeanine Hoff. Her talk is called
"Where is the Sunshine?"
Well, no, I'm like, where is the thing on my spreadsheet right here?
Oh.
We've been enjoying this conversation with Jeanine Hoff. Her talk is called "Where is the Sunshine? My journey as a mental health survivor." We're going to pivot over to you for just a couple of quick questions for you, Talk Universe, in the Blitz Round. And we're back with the Blitz Round. It is time for the Blitz Round with Jeanine Hoff. Her talk is called "Where is the Sunshine? My Journey as a Mental Health Survivor." I'm going to ask her a couple of either-or questions related to the prep and performance of her recent talk. Jeanine, are you ready?
Yes.
So you mentioned that you had applied. Any advice on getting accepted?
I had to film a video, and I don't know if it's like that in every city, but I had to film a 1-minute video. I filmed it at 1:30 in the morning. My husband took it on my phone, and I had to do it that time because I had to make sure all the kids were sleeping and nobody was getting up and wandering. And it took several takes, but I think that's the key. I think having them see that you can engage people through your voice and through your eye contact and through your hands, I think that's really important.
Are you a memorizer, improviser, or blender?
I am the biggest improviser ever. When I go speak anywhere, unless I'm doing a presentation where I have to, start out facts, and I will have my PowerPoint or whatever, and I will throw them out. I do not prepare. I just wake up in the morning. I go, because that to me shows how much knowledge I have and how thorough I am. And I will sometimes make an outline right now I'm doing a lot of presentations on natural living, on how, vitamins and all of that stuff can help you with your mental health. And I have my PowerPoint, but there is no real, and anything to it. I just have an outline that I follow, so I know where to stay on time and all of that. But
you did a great job in this talk, staying on time in improv. So I think maybe what you mean by improvisation for a lot of the rest of us is a lot stricter interpretation on that. But obviously, what you're doing is working for you very, very well. Jeanine, were you an opener? Were you a closer, or in between?
I was actually really just smack in the middle. We had 3 sessions. I was the first one of the second session because each session had a theme.
Okay.
And in my
session, you opened the
yeah.
second session then.
Yes.
So what advice do you have for people that are opening a middle section like that?
I think it depends on your city's theme or whatnot. We were people who had struggles. It was with race, with sexuality, all of those things, and mental health. So we were
you opened up the struggle section.
And I think for me, whenever I talk, my always advice is to give people hope, leave people with the positive, because nobody wants to walk out of there feeling down and negative. And I want people to whatever it is, even if you're talking about hello, I'm talking about suicide here. That people can walk out feeling positive that there is hope, and it doesn't matter, I really think, where you are in the program.
Well, we've been enjoying this Blitz round with Jeanine Hoff. Her talk is called "Where is the Sunshine? My Journey as a Mental Health Survivor." You can find out more about that. You can watch that talk on our show notes page at BeTheTalk.com. You can also go to whereisthesunshine.com, which is very well aligned with her talk. Whereisthesunshine.com. We'll have a link to that in our show notes to her organization. And we will be right back with Jeanine Hoff for the 15-second final word of advice in just a moment. And we're back with Jeanine Hoff in the final word of advice. What is it?
My word of advice is to do what you want to do and don't be afraid. And who cares? If you have something and you think it's going to really help someone and it's going to change something, go for it. And the people who love you will continue to love you, and the haters are going to hate no matter what. And if they drop out of your life, then bye.
Jeanine Hoff, thanks so much for coming on the show today and sharing your wisdom with Talk Universe.
Thank you.
All right, that's a wrap.
Awesome. So I'm done.
You can stick around, or if you've got to split, we understand that as well. After you do one last thing, and that is, as our newest Talk alumni, you got to give David and Amanda, who are next on deck, advice on dealing with me. So what is your word of advice to them? Because they're on the hook now.
It was really, really easy. I think I was more annoyed that my face looks blue from the lighting in my house. But no, it was super easy, and it was super, the questions are so open-ended that you can answer any which way. And we all do this so often that I think it's just very easy. Yeah, there's no stress. No stress. It was fun.
No worries, everybody. All right. Well, David, you are up next. I'm going to escort Amanda and Jeanine back to the green room here. And David, how are you doing, man? You ready for this?
Yeah, I'm very good. Can you hear me okay?
I sure can.
Yes, brilliant.
I sure can. So we're going to, let's see here. David Murray is an experienced speaker and public speaking and communication coach. David has worked with hundreds of people to help them grow confidence and communication skills. In 2018, David achieved a long-standing ambition delivering his TEDx talk. Let's see here. And it's Embracing Certainty, and then
Embracing Uncertainty. Yeah.
Yep, davidallenmurray.com is the website. All right.
Thank you.
Any adjustments to that?
No, that's great.
All right.
Thank you.
Awesome. Well, we are live in 3, 2. We are live with David Murray. David,
hello.
Are you ready to talk?
I am. Thank you very much for having me on your show today.
David Murray is an experienced speaker and public speaking and communication coach. David has worked with hundreds of people to help them grow confidence and in their communication skills. In 2018, David achieved a long-standing ambition, getting accepted and delivering his TEDx talk. Yes. David Murray, welcome to the talk.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me today. Really excited to be on your show.
Your talk is called Embracing Uncertainty. And you mentioned in your talk that fear and uncertainty are always going to be a part of your life and our life as well. And until we really lean into it and take action and take the first step, we're never going to know what's going to happen. And really, action is the key to embracing uncertainty and overcoming the paralysis of uncertainty. So, David, please take us behind the talk.
Well, it's the talk kind of started many, many years ago because I share, two stories from my life, something when I was a child, something more recent. But in a way, the journey for that talk probably specifically started 6 years ago because I found myself at a public speaking storytelling event, something I'd never done before, something that absolutely petrified me. And I was given a gentle nudge by a friend just to share a short speech. It was a simple question and I froze. I was petrified. My head was full of, they're going to think what I'm saying is rubbish. I'm going to, collapse in a heap on the floor. And all these things was running through my head. And it was at that point I realized that I didn't want to feel that way anymore. And I set on my own path to develop my public speaking and communication skills. And then 6 years later, I found myself on the TEDx stage, in a way, in part talking about that experience, but primarily realizing that, in life, we'll be faced with a number of different challenges, different maybe paths or directions that we need to take. And they can be quite scary, some of these things, but you realize is that by taking that little step forward into the unknown, like I did that first day when I was asked to deliver a very short presentation, that, it's actually going to be okay. And by doing that, you actually grow in confidence that you can take on the next challenge and the next challenge. And essentially, the talk was about me being a little boy, being frightened to ask a girl out to the school disco. And, all those thoughts and fears went in my head that she was going to say no, she wasn't going to like me, my friends are going to laugh at me. And I told a story about when, later in life, a relationship came to an end, and I came with a big decision about what I wanted to do. And I realized that what I needed to do was, a change of focus, change of career. But that was quite scary too. And in a way, those kind of two stories kind of embraced my kind of feeling that, life does present itself with challenges, but you are stronger and more courageous than you realize.
Well, that's amazing. So, I mean, what is your advice for other people that have, they're just in a spot right now? At the time of this recording, we're right in the middle of the holiday seasons. This is a key time for a lot of people who are a little disconnected, which are more and more and more of us. What can they do to really turn this time of year around and really take action and overcome some of the uncertainty that they're dealing with?
And I guess that's probably the main thing to do, is actually to notice what that uncertainty is. I mean, what is it that is kind of driving that? Is it a decision that you need to make? Is it maybe perhaps it's contacting relatives or friends that you haven't been in touch with for a while, and kind of just sort of taking a moment to think about, well, actually, what is actually really preventing me from taking that step or reaching out to that person? And know that sometimes we can build up in our heads kind of a lot of thoughts about how things might be, how they might turn out. And sometimes the thoughts that we present ourselves can be far worse than the reality of a situation. So just think about what that thing is. And I would suggest, if it feels right to, take action, make a small step forward to reaching out to that person, or to perhaps talk to a friend about an important decision and get their view on that. Yeah, well,
absolutely. So, what are some of the things that that you found? I mean, how did you come across this idea we're spreading? How did you craft it? What was the process like for you?
Yeah, I guess if I sort of looked at myself, I was standing on the TEDx stage, and I had to, put myself forward to audition for that. And what I did was, so when I came from a place of quite sort of very nervous, very scared at public speaking, I, talking to people who set out in terms of delivering presentations, a lot of people tend to feel quite nervous and build up this kind of scary picture of how things are going to be. And it was almost 3 years after I sort of started on my kind of journey, I decided that I wanted to help others who were kind of a bit scared, who were where I was those 3 years ago. So I set up small little events to encourage people to come along, share their ideas, share their stories, but primarily based around a place that it was going to be all right. It was very supportive, and people were encouraged to kind of, take a little step into the unknown, share a little bit about themselves, and try to, talk and share stories in a group setting. And I realized that over the kind of 2 or 3 years I was doing that I wanted to do more with myself to kind of, in a way, sort of add greater credibility to me as being a coach in terms of the communication skills and public speaking. So, a step for me, a reach for me, was applying for the TEDx talk, because even as, so we say, experienced as I still had to go through that process of, there was other people, there was going to, no doubt be a number of people applying to talk. And you've got to kind of make yourself vulnerable and put yourself in a position where they may not like what I've got to say. They may think that my idea that I'm sharing about uncertainty is, not interesting, not relevant for that audience. But there again, that's where those little niggles of doubt come in. Well, it's not worth me applying for it because I'm not going to get through anyway. Or, for example, if you're contacting a friend at Christmas that you've not spoken to for a while, oh, they're probably not going to be interested. But you don't know until you take that step. And, you know, I'm glad that I did. And it's been a sort of great experience for me, and something that I'm, you know, really pleased that I did. And I, as I say, in terms of the idea of uncertainty, it's about kind of having the courage to realize you don't try and push fear away or block it out. Realize that in some situations they might be a bit scary, but, you know, showing a little bit of courage means that you can definitely, you know, get to the other side and see the positivity that you can have.
Oh, absolutely. We've been enjoying this conversation with David Murray. His talk is called Embracing Uncertainty, and we are going to hear more from David Murray in just a moment in the Blitz Round. And we are back with the Blitz Round with David Murray. I'm going to ask David a series of either-or questions related to the preparation and performance of his recent talk. David, are you ready?
I'm ready. Yes, great. Thank you.
All right. So I think I know the answer to this based on what you said, but were you invited to speak or did you apply?
I had to apply. Yes, I applied. It was early this year. I had to apply with a number of other people, and I went for an audition and thankfully got accepted. But yes, had to apply.
Yeah. Well, what's your advice for other people to get accepted?
I think the key thing is that I like to share stories, and I think that even whether you're delivering presentations or my talk was specifically around a couple of stories, is add a story into your talk. Definitely people like that. But more importantly is that if you are going for an audition, you have to kind of tailor your talk for the audition, and it might be slightly different to the talk you deliver on the actual TEDx stage. So think about the audition might be at fewer people, it might be in a smaller room. So just think about actually tailoring your talk, maybe, you know, refining it to some degree to connect with a smaller amount of people than you would do on a larger stage. So just think about your audition will be different to the full TEDx talk. So maybe think about refining it to some degree to match a smaller audience before you deliver it on the bigger stage.
Well, David, are you a memorizer, an improviser, or a blender?
I like to memorize my talk, but to the point where I'm able to incorporate what's going on inside the room within my talk itself. So I like to kind of do a bit of both, memorize and blend in what's happening in my surroundings.
What's a tip, tool, or technique that helped you prepare?
I'd say give yourself plenty of time plenty of time in advance of your talk. Be clear about your message and have the flexibility to, when you're inside the room itself, see what's going on and incorporate different aspects of what's happening in the room at the time. So, for example, if you're speaker number 2, 3, and 4, maybe there's something connected with another speech which you can bring into your speech as you deliver that.
You know, David, were you a opener? Were you a closer? Or were you in between?
I was in between. So I was in about number 4 or 5, I think I was.
What's your advice to the other in-betweeners?
I would say be present in the room. You know your speech. You've practiced your speech beforehand, be present in a room, listen to the other speeches, and try to draw on some of those influences and incorporate them into your talk, because it means that people will connect with your talk even stronger by doing that.
You know, this is the cut for time question. What was the most painful part of your talk that you had to cut out?
I think that I wanted my talk to be 3 stories, and in terms of painful, with a bit that was most challenging was, but in terms of the time allowed, I had to kind of cut it down to 2. And I thought, well, it's not going to be the same talk, but actually it was probably even more effective. So the advice there is be open to kind of, you know, leave stuff out if you need to.
Yeah, actually it was very effective. And it's on the shorter side of talks. It was about, if I'm not mistaken, about 12 minutes, something like that.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. Right. So I was preparing for 18 minutes and the organizer said, we need yours to be 12. So I had to be quite ruthless with it. It's hard to begin with because these are your stories, but actually you realize that actually it probably even has even greater effect, I think, if you can actually be confident enough to cut some things out, definitely. You know,
Talk Universe, David's absolutely right, because as you may know, I used to volunteer behind the scenes in an actual organization, and I would track month to month all the views of all the talks that that we had promoted, and there were hundreds of talks at that point. There's even more now, and I would track them, and invariably, David's right. The shorter talks got more views overall, and it makes a lot of sense because it's less daunting to watch, and frankly, as I've been helping more and more people get accepted and then give their talks, it's very interesting because I noticed some people. They might get all 18 minutes and they may only have 10 minutes worth of real content. So, I mean, it's like the question that we have to ask yourself. And then what David's saying right now is, he had 18 minutes of real good stories, but then he shortened it. He cut out a story, and it's a much more condensed, much more packed talk to be able to do that. It's so much more impactful when you condense it down to as short as possible, rather than having things and leaving people as we now have a very, very short attention span, less than a goldfish. Shorter is better. So congratulations, David. What's your thought on that?
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think that what you've got to get away from is being sort of too precious about the content. And I think that with all our talks, Nathan, you'll know your experience is that, there's a number of different ways in which you can say things, and, invariably less is more. So, if you've got, always meet the time, never run over time, and be willing to kind of say, right, it's not sacrificing content, it's just making your speech even more impactful, I think.
Yeah. And it's also, I mean, consideration to all the other speakers, consideration to the team, the organizer, the sponsors, everybody that puts all these things together. And then, when you hit the time that they give you and don't take extra time, it just makes you look even more of a rock star for the next place that you might want to give. And maybe it's a paid keynote, maybe it's a paid workshop or presentation. You're really demonstrating a lot of things in your TEDx talk. So congratulations on that, David. Yeah. And, we've been enjoying this Blitz round with David Murray. His talk is called Embracing Uncertainty, and his website is David Allen with one L, davidallenmurray.com. You can go to both links on our website at bethetalk.com. Watch Embracing Uncertainty. We'll have a link to that, and we will also have a link to David's website, David Allen Murray, Allen with one L, davidallenmurray.com. And we will be right back with David Murray for the final word of advice in just a moment. And we're back with the final word of advice with David Murray. What is it?
I would say, if you're thinking about delivering a speech or presentations, you never tried it before, I would say get out there and do it. It's never going to be as bad as you think it will be.
Well, David Murray, thank you so much for coming on the talk today and sharing your wisdom with Talk Universe.
You're absolutely welcome. It's been great to talk to you today. Thank you so much.
All right, that's a wrap.
Thank you.
Congratulations. All right, your advice to Amanda, who we're pulling up here. How you doing, Amanda?
I'm doing all right. How are you?
We're good. We're
Hey,
good.
Amanda.
David, your advice now. David, Amanda, and I actually had the privilege of already meeting. But what extra advice could you give to Amanda, just so that she doesn't run out on me here in the middle of our Facebook Live?
It's unlikely, Nathan.
It's Amanda. It's a very enjoyable experience. I think that's the thing. It's over before you even know it. So enjoy every moment of it. That's what I would say.
Thank you very much. I'll do it.
You're welcome. Thank you very much, Nathan. It's brilliant.
Thank you so much, David.
Thank you.
All right. You know what? I have a little bit of a technical issue here with and I hate to I only do this in between sessions, but I'm just checking a little email here. A wrong link for one of our future.
Take your time. No worries.
Yeah, and this is the fun thing about being on Facebook Live in the middle of this too. So it's not just you guys. It's not just you guys, but it's Facebook Live.
I couldn't find the Facebook Live link. I wanted to go over and
Oh, isn't
like
that funny?
one of the things someone said. I couldn't find it.
Oh, well, I actually, this is like the king of multitasking, but I actually, during, the first part of David's interview, went back into our Facebook since we're friends, and I tagged the both of you in Facebook, which is probably why we have more viewers live right now, because I was able to go in and do that. So if you're watching live right now, you want to wiggle your finger right over the share button to help us overcome the evil Facebook algorithm. All right. David gave an amazing talk. Amanda gave an amazing talk. And I know that because Amanda was like, well, you were number 2 in the event. You were number 2. And, I would not, Scout's honor, even though, I would not have introduced Amanda for her talk if I didn't know she was going to do a killer, amazing job that she totally did. That's a little disclaimer. So if you figure that out, I've had a number of TEDx Harrisburg alumni. I was a TEDx Harrisburg alumni, and then the following year they gave me the honor and the shock, because it was about 2 days before I'd just come back from a trip to Maine, and they're like, "Hey, you want to MC?" I'm like, "Well, let me think about this before we completely commit to this on short notice." And I'm, so I got to interview or not even interview, but introduce so many great people. So awesome, all good. Any parting words of advice for all of us, David, before we escort you back to the green room here?
Just good luck. Good luck.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, David. Amanda, how are you?
I'm great.
It's good to see you again.
It's good to see you too. This is
Woohoo.
a super legit podcast. Well done.
Super lit. What as opposed to a legit? What makes it from a legit to a super legit?
You have a great voice for radio and podcasts. You sound like a serious professional. The people who are on here are very well spoken, and your questions are good, and you draw people out and you make them feel comfortable. And I've enjoyed watching it.
That's awesome. And the only thing that I think that I could have done better in that I'm not going to do, but it just kind of strikes me, it'd be so cool. I have your program from your TED Talk lying around, and how cool would it be to show that? Because I had Joe, I've had Beth, I've had a number of other people, and that would be so cool. But I'm kind of locked behind the microphone right now, and I don't have my production manager or an intern here in my my guest room of my house to be able to fetch those things for me as we want. Now that would be a super legit podcast if I had a production. Hey, hey, producer, get Amanda's program for us.
That's right.
Oh my gosh, how fun would that be? All right, so let's do this. Let's before I completely forget about this. All right. Amanda Crowell, PhD, is a cognitive psychologist, speaker, and growth coach determined to unleash the very best in the world. As changemakers, Amanda works...
Changemakers.
What's that?
Unleash the very best in the world, changemakers.
Oh, you know what? So I've got weird characters because of the apostrophe, and my brain interpreted that as the word, some kind of, I kind of improvise. The world's change makers. Thank you so much. Amanda works with coaches, therapists, and mission-driven entrepreneurs to break through their resistance and make and that's where the 50 words
massive progress.
A what?
Massive progress.
And make massive progress. All right.
You got this.
Calendly, we need a little bit more. Yeah. We need a little bit more space. Calendly, when my guests show up in there. My gosh, that's so funny. All right, go figure. Let's see here. We got that. AmandaCrowell.com. 3 reasons you aren't doing what you say you want to do.
Yes.
All right. And I think that's about it right there. And I'm going to do my typical Beth and Joe disclaimer, which is, hey, I was backstage in the Muppet Show backstage. Dusty
Yeah.
Didn't you? Do you remember the Muppet Show, or are you
Oh, yeah.
different? Yeah. So
I'm a huge fan.
that backstage
It did look
reminds me of, like, is that Kermit over there, and does
Right.
that Fozzie on the other end, and is that the
Yeah.
Flying Zucchini Brother? It's like the Muppet Show backstage,
It was.
and it's so hard to hear. So you just hear want, 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 want. So I'm going to ask some more obvious questions, and we're still waiting for the video to come out at
Yep.
this point. Correct. So
Yeah.
that's all good. But just saying all of that. So, all right, we are live in 3, 2. We are live with Amanda Crowell. Amanda, are you ready to talk?
I am ready to talk.
Dr. Amanda Crowell, PhD, is a cognitive psychologist, speaker, and growth coach determined to unleash the very best in the world's change makers. Amanda works with coaches, therapists, and mission-driven entrepreneurs to break through their resistance and make massive progress. Amanda Crowell, welcome to the talk.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. It's great to see you again.
Yeah, likewise. And your talk is called 3 Reasons You Aren't Doing What You Say You Want to Do. And Talk Universe, little disclaimer here, because I wasn't technically in the room for Amanda's talk. I was backstage. This is TEDx Harrisburg. It's still so recent. The at the time of this recording, the video, we're waiting for it to be live. And I read Amanda's amazing bio, just like I just did. And then I walked backstage where there's no monitor. And I actually didn't get to really hear her talk, other than kind of the phone person on Peanuts with the want, 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 want. That's what it sounded like. So I'm going to ask Amanda to kind of recap the talk very briefly for us and to take us behind the talk.
Yes, absolutely. So the talk is called 3 Reasons Why You're Not Doing What You Say You Want to Do. And it talks about the mindset blocks that keep people from doing the hard work that they say they want to do. So people have a lot of goals, and people tend not to make much progress on those goals. And the question that this talk answers is, why is that the case? So one of the reasons, there are 3. One of the reasons is that somewhere deep inside themselves, they feel like they can't do it. The second reason is that they believe that people like them don't do things like this. And the third reason is that actually secretly they don't want to do it. So we walked through each of those, and I shared my personal story with how I got into this work and the experience I had of applying it to my life, and told a couple of jokes. People laughed, and that was my talk.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, how awesome was that? Can you take us a little bit behind the scenes of how do you craft a talk, and how do you really bring a talk forth that really aligns with the brand of professional that you are? I mean, I just thought that you really presented it very well, and you aligned it very well. And so many times we just kind of want to give a good TED talk, but we don't really align it as well with what we're trying to accomplish.
Yeah. So that's a great question. And it comes out of sort of the larger story of the work that I've been doing. So I have been working in the space of mindset blocks for about 6 years. I started working with schools who were trying to re-engage students who were struggling with school. And around that time, I realized in my own life that I had this entrenched problem. I never, ever exercised, and I had this back problem, and I had to figure out what I could do to actually break through a deeply entrenched problem in my own life. And I thought, if these are the strategies that we can use to re-engage people who are struggling with school, can we use those strategies to re-engage people in an area of their life where they are also struggling? And so over the course of about 3 years, I broke through the mindset blocks, and I moved into action, and I was able to learn how to run and bike and swim. And I did a triathlon and a half marathon. And it was like this impossible outcome. It should never have been possible because it was so categorically not who I was. So I did that work, and I was like, everybody needs to know about this. Like, I got to take this out of just the schools. I still work with schools. I have to take this out of the schools. And I started doing workshops in New York City at this place called the Brooklyn Brainery, which is a community-driven education organization. I did like 17 workshops in the first year. So I had really been figuring out how to share this message for a long time. And then the next year after that, I did it as sort of a keynote speech. So I did 21 of those keynote speeches the year after that. And then I was accepted for the TED Talk. So I was like, oh, this is no big deal. I will, and in fact, I applied to a lot of different TED organizations within driving distance of my house because I knew I wanted to do one, but I knew exactly what it would be about. And I was accepted at TEDx Harrisburg, which is amazing. And I was like, this is going to be easy. I'll just take what I already know, having done more than 40 different presentations about this, not including all the presentations I've done at schools. And I put it together and sent off my, when you do a TED Talk, there's like steps. You have to send in an outline and then you have to send in a script. So I skipped all the deadlines and just sent my script in and sort of backburnered it because I had a lot of other stuff going on. And then one day I practiced it and it was like 21 minutes long, which is like too long. Like it can't be that long.
Yep.
It's not allowed.
Not supposed to be that long.
No.
But that's not actually, as a first draft, that's not bad. And that's very, very, very common. It's always going to go long. That's why it's a draft.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And it did. And it scared me. And I was like, this is, and one of the questions that you're going to ask later, I know, is whether I'm a improviser or a rehearser or a blender, I think you called it. And I was a hardcore improviser. I'm a good speaker. Like, give me something to talk about. I'll take 10 or 15 minutes, just think about like, what stories do I want to tell? And I will crush it. But I couldn't because I tried it again and again and again. And every time it would go over, or I would miss important parts. And this talk really mattered to me. I feel like it's a platform. It's going to be on my website. It's going to be featured. Like, I needed it to be good. So I realized I had to do it a different way. And so I had to go on a really different path for me. So as opposed to just making an outline, showing up and like being charismatic and hoping for the best, I actually went in the complete opposite direction. I did a lot. I memorized the whole thing and I did like 6 rehearsals. And
well, you did the hard work that the format really requires to give a solid idea worth spreading, as opposed to the workshops and the performance, the keynotes, the paid speaking, all the things that you're doing. And I congratulate you, Amanda, for doing that, because so many other professionals like you that are at the top of their game and they're used to flying around, jet setting, and you modify your thing 10% for each client, and you just do 10% because you got your little trademark talk presentation. And then you're like, oh, here's this TED Talk. I'm going to just tweak that. Here's the way that it works. I mean, you're a great communicator, so it would have worked out great for you anyway, but it wouldn't have really been an idea worth spreading or a TEDx talk. And other people who really love that format, who are real tribal, TEDx type tribe people, they'd be like, oh, this was somebody who just went through the motions, gave some good, but it didn't really invest in the format. And that's not you. You did invest. You could have been the other kind, but you didn't. You invested. You did the hard work, and you took the high road and the low road of humility, of adapting what you do, pouring a lot more time, energy that you didn't have to do that. And you still did it anyway. So congratulations. And I'd love for you to speak to that.
Yeah. Thank you, Nathan. That's such a nice way to put it. For me, I felt like, in my bio, it says, I'm obsessed with unleashing the very best in the world's change makers. And that really is my mission. Like, there are so many people, so many high achievers with so many great ideas. And if we were all unleashed on the world, we could really change it. And I feel like I know that the 3 mindsets, these are the high achievers mindsets. Like, I know if high achievers, change makers in the world really understood the 3 things and how they're playing out in their lives, it would unleash them. It would make it possible for them to begin to take steps. So it was partly because I really respect the TED brand and entity and the power that it can have. I wanted to show up with my best because I trust the TED brand to like get it out to people. I really wanted to do my best work, but I also wanted to do my best work because I needed and I'll tell you, I feel like it worked, and I'll tell you why. Okay, let me back up. I wanted to show up with the best ideas, like the best way to share these three things. Because if people in the audience could translate it into their lives and would come up to me afterward, not saying, right? Every time you do a timeshare, you do it, I do it, anybody who does talks, people come up to them and say, that was a really great talk, so interesting, you're so whatever about you. What I love is when somebody comes up to you after a talk and is like, you were great, but let's talk about me. I did this and I really resonated with what you said and I had this experience. They translated it. They applied it in their own head. And that happened, I would say, this is why I was so blown away by the experience. That happens, 2 or 3 people will come up to me after the end of a speech and really talk to me about that usually. Almost everybody at the TED Talk who came up to talk to me said, you were great, but I had this experience. I was doing this. I was really like, do you think I could? Do you have any resources? They were in their own head. And that to me is the point.
Absolutely. We do a course on getting accepted for people that also want to get accepted. And there are those 3 roadblocks. There are those 3 secrets. And the first one is really, it's the internal roadblock of can I? And what we got to do is we got to turn that, and really what this podcast is all about, and all of my guests help me do, we're here to turn your can I do this too that's going on, everybody listening to this, right? Can I do this too, or can I do another one? And we want to turn that into a how can I?
Yes.
So in that, best segue I've ever made, we're going to talk more about that in just a moment in the Blitz round.
Great.
And we are back with Dr. Amanda Crowell. I said that wrong. And we are back with Dr. Amanda Crowell. It is time for the Blitz round. I'm going to ask Amanda a series of either-or questions related to the preparation and performance of her recent TEDx talk. Amanda, are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. So we talked about you applying. Any advice? What advice do you have for people who are also trying to get accepted?
Yeah. My advice is get really clear on what your idea worth spreading is first. Get passionate about it, get excited about it, and then apply to as many as possible. It's a numbers game. It's about the fit. It's about somebody just seeing it and clicking with it. And that is just be ready and apply as fast as you can.
Yeah, that's exactly what we do. We have 2 habits out of the 5 that we recommend, and 2 of them are finding the events and then tracking your applications. Because the more you do that, it's like getting a better job or getting a college acceptance. It's the same thing, and there's the art of it, but it's really more the science of it. Is what I found, and I did the same exact thing. So here's that question again. You mentioned, we talked about this. We talked about your improvisation, and congratulations on you for realizing, hey, if I'm a top level professional, but I'm not a top level professional TED talker until and unless I really lean in and unlearn and relearn this. So for people who are got their game on and they got invited. Because some of the people, some of the people that I review, and even some of my guests, as great as all my guests are, I look and sometimes looking back, the ones that gave good presentations, but not necessarily quintessential talks, I find out in the interview they were invited to speak, so they didn't apply, and there wasn't. So could you speak to those people in there? Maybe they were invited to speak and they're really tempted. Hey, I'll just customize my talk 5% because my buddy asked me to speak, and all of that. Don't do that. Give a real talk. What's your advice, Amanda?
I have a 2-part advice. The first is if you're invited to talk, get really clear before don't phone it in. Get clear about what it can do for you. What is the one thing that you want people to take away from that talk? Like what idea are you hoping to spread? What change are you trying to create? And get yourself passionate about it. If you had applied, you would have gone through the process of becoming passionate about it. That's part of what happens. And then the risk of of applying and the potential for rejection invests you in it. You didn't have that, so you have to come back to it and invest yourself in it by really getting clear about what you can get from it. And then the second thing I would say is, if you were invited to give a TED Talk, chances are you're very, very busy, and you will not, the time to practice is not going to fall out of the sky. You have to take it on yourself to schedule rehearsals. I would get 5 or 6 different opportunities to do it in front of 5 or 6 different groups, whether it's an invited talk on Zoom or something that you're doing for a local networking group. Get those on the calendar so that you have to be ready to give your worst version of it, like at least 2 weeks before the actual TED Talk, so you have that accountability that you have in place to improve.
Now, this is going to be, this is my last question, but this is going to be fun because, again, I introduced you on the stage that day, emceeing this. So I love this question since I was literally feet from you at this time. What was the most unexpected, strange, or just plain weird thing that happened, including maybe me introducing myself to you earlier that morning? Unexpected, strange, or just plain weird thing that happened before or during your talk?
Okay. So there was, that's such a good question. Okay, here it is. Oh, I know. I have the best answer. Okay. So I rehearsed the crap out of this talk, right? Like, I knew I had like metrics about this talk by the end, like this specific, like, story tends to go sideways in this way, and here's how I know if it's right. And when I walked off the stage, and I felt like it went really well, people said to me, remember how I said, they were like, you were great, but let's talk about me. In the you were great part, the thing they said most often was, you were so natural. I felt like we were just having a conversation. And I was like, what? I thought they were going to think I was really rehearsed, but all that rehearsal, all that knowledge, like really being allowed me to just be with them in the room. And I remember seeing people like, which normally I'm so in my head about what's coming next. Like, I remember seeing people and thinking like, oh, thank you so much for sitting there, like nodding your head the whole time. It was so great. And they were like, I can't believe you recognized me. So it allowed me to be in the moment in a way that I hadn't expected.
Well, isn't that great? I mean, and that's the key about preparation. We feel like it's very unnatural because we're not necessarily used to doing it. Those of us that are maybe more performing artists, it's a little different because we are used to over preparing so that it does become natural. But that's a function and a feature of being super prepared so that you can then be in the moment because you're not as freaked out, even though you are freaked out, but you walk out and the preparation kicks in, and then you can, use the freak out, lean into the freak out and make the connection. And that's what you did, Amanda. So congratulations for that.
Thanks. Thank you.
We've been enjoying this Blitz round with Dr. Amanda Crowell. Her talk is called 3 Reasons You Aren't Doing What You Say You Want to Do. And you can watch that talk over at our website, show notes at bethetalk.com. We're still waiting for it to be released. It is that new. And you can also go to amandacrowell.com to find out about these amazing high performance tools that she has and techniques and tips and everything that she studies. Amanda Crowell is spelled Crowell, amandacrowell.com. And we'll be right back with Amanda Crowell with the final word of advice in just a moment. And we're back with Amanda Crowell. It is time for the final word of advice. What is it?
Yeah. So my advice is, and this is for people who want to do a TED Talk or any other amazing thing. The key to it is understanding, if you can, what's happening in your own mind that has you sort of limited, that's keeping you blocked, that's keeping you from taking just any step. You find yourself shut down, and finding a way to suspend that disbelief and moving into action. The only thing that differentiates you from a person who's doing what you want to do is that they are in action and they stay in action. And when things get hard, they just keep moving. So if you can take on that habit, there's really nothing that can stop you.
Amanda Crowell, thank you so much for carving out time to be on the talk today and sharing your wisdom with Talk Universe.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
All right, that's a wrap.
All right.
Congratulations. All right.
That was very nice of you to invite me on your podcast. Your super legit podcast.
So thankful. All right, Sunny, you made it.
I did.
You made it. So there's a back channel thing that's been going on today. I don't know what was going on, but we're having such a hard time for Sunny finding the link or getting on or whatever. And then she finally got on. So I don't know if you saw my chat messages to you when you got into here, but I'm so glad to see you.
Thanks for your patience.
All right. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to escort myself back to the green room for just a moment. We are still broadcasting on Facebook Live, but Amanda, same thing with you. Congratulations. You're our newest Talk alumni. And you get to have the privilege of bringing Sunny up to speed here in terms of your advice for dealing with me. Going to take care of something. I'll be back in just one.
Hi, Sunny.
Hi, man. Hi. How are you?
I'm good. I don't think you really need any advice. It was great. It was very he's easy to talk to and very supportive.
Okay, that's great. That's great. Yeah. I just caught the last minute or two of your talk, so well done.
Thanks.
Yeah, you're really a great speaker.
Oh.
Where are you?
Right now I'm at my house, which is just outside of New York City.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, working from home today, thank goodness.
Okay.
Where are you?
I'm just north of Toronto, Canada.
Oh.
And we have a lot of snow here.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a privilege to be indoors right now.
Yeah. Totally. What was your talk about?
Last year, my husband and I and our 3 kids backpacked around the world.
What?
Yeah. So I'm talking about how difficult travel builds your mental grit. My talk was about that last month. Yeah.
Wow. Where was it? In Toronto?
Close to Toronto, about an hour north.
Okay.
Yeah, it's called TEDx Collingwood. Yeah, it was wonderful.
That's
so great. Yeah, I'm excited about this. A little nervous, but excited. Yeah.
Oh, great. And welcome. I'll have to look for your talk. Is it out?
Yes, it came out a couple of weeks ago. So my name's Sunny. Yeah, Sunny McGaw. And it's TEDx Collingwood. And I wrote yours down, Crowell, right? Amanda Crowell?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it'll be out soon. It's sort of nerve-wracking. For a month, I just refused to think about it. There's no way that it's out. I'm not going to think about it. And now it's been more than a month, and I'm like, okay. So every day I think about it a little bit. I wonder if today's the day, and I go check.
I think it took about a month exactly to get up. Yeah, but I know that it's not the same for everyone. Was your talk a large one? Were there many speakers?
There were 9 speakers.
9 speakers. Were there any performers?
No.
Okay.
No, they had a couple of like classic TED Talks that they showed.
Yep.
But there were no non-TED performers. There was one guy who was a mentalist, Joe Crusello's name. He was awesome, but it was still a TED Talk, not a.
Okay.
Hey.
Hey, welcome back. Thanks for holding down the fort for me. I'm ready to go.
All right. Good luck.
Thanks, Amanda.
That's awesome. Amanda, thanks so much. Gonna send you back to escort you back to the not send. I have to be careful the words I use. That's not a nice send. Gonna kick you out. No, we're going to escort you back to the green room. My favorite, most recent guest, and now my new favorite guest, Sunny. How are you?
I'm well, thanks. How are you?
I'm good.
Good.
I am great. So what was going on there? We are broadcasting, but it was like we had this. I try not to. I try to be like in the zone, focused on everybody I'm interviewing. But I'm noticing, from time to time when I do these, I have, as you know, Sunny, I have up to 5 people scheduled for a 90-minute slot, which sounds insane, except that, technical issues, scheduling, just last minute issues, they really do happen. So I kind of, over time, I've kind of utilized this and build it up more like it's like an airline booking thing and everything. And then I think we have a thread of like all these emails, and it's like, oh, I don't see it in here. And you're like, I'm waiting. So thank you. I just did that last one. I'm like, I know you already tried this one, but please copy and paste this. Let's just see if it works. And then I see you in there, which is wonderful, which is great. So, and then we have another crew joining us in the 10 o'clock hour, except that a couple of them are delayed. So I'm hoping that the first of those will come in, and we'll just continue it right there, because I don't like having gaps on this giant broadcast with everything. But anyway, let's go ahead and practice your bio here, Sunny. All right. In August 2017, Sunny and her husband and 3 children left their secure lives in Toronto for the adventure and challenge of backpacking around the world. 9 months, 5 continents, 19 countries, 69,000 kilometers. Sunny is a marketing enthusiast, and that's where the Calendly cut off. Sunny is a marketing enthusiast, and then what was the rest of that?
I'm not sure what the exact rest of it was, but I'm a marketer.
Give me something. Sunny is a marketing enthusiast at blank agency, or whatever went there.
Sunny is a marketing enthusiast who believes that the best learning comes from travel.
Okay.
From world experiences.
All right, that we can use that.
All right.
All right. In August 2017, Sunny and her husband and their 3 children left their secure lives in Toronto for the adventure and challenge of backpacking around the world. 9 months, 5 continents, 19 countries, 69,000 kilometers. Sunny is a marketing enthusiast who believes that the best learning comes from traveling the world. Let's see. And I got one of those weird characters. So 9 months, after 9 months, but then it becomes a fragment.
9 months.
After 9 months, 5 blah, 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 blah.
Yep.
Oh, the world. All right, I'll just make it work.
Okay.
Building mental grit through hard travel. All right.
You got it.
All right.
Yeah.
Excellent. And then we have your LinkedIn profile right there. Do you have a website for you, or is that the best thing for you as opposed to another organization?
I have our travel blog website, which would be 5 Backpacks.
Okay.
WordPress. Yeah.
5 Backpacks.
.wordpress.com.
.wordpress. Okay.
Or yeah. 5
right.
The number. Yeah.
5 the number. Okay, great.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Very good. All right. All right. Any questions for me?
No.
All right. Well, we are live in 3, 2, and it's sorry. It is let's see. It's Sunny McGaw.
Just Sunny McGaw.
Sunny McGaw. Okay, because you got
I know.
different name, and I just want to do the official name or preferred name or whatnot.
Sunny McGaw is fine. Yeah.
There we go. All right. 3, 2. We are live with Sunny McGaw. Sunny, are you ready to talk?
I sure am. Thanks, Nathan.
In August 2017, Sunny McGaw, her husband, and their 3 children left their secure lives in Toronto for the adventure and challenge of backpacking around the world. 9 months, 5 continents, 19 countries, and 69,000 kilometers. Sunny is a marketing enthusiast who believes that the best learning comes from traveling the world. Sunny McGaw, welcome to the talk.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Your talk is called Building Mental Grit Through Hard travel. And I love this talk because you talk about looking up at 3,900 stairs. You talk about this really great balance between grit versus entitlement, which is super relevant today. You talk about some of your keys to grit in travel, which includes traveling light and having patience, empathy, and my greatest challenge, which is my number 32 strength finder out of 32, which is adaptability. So, Sunny, please take us behind the talk.
Thanks so much. So we accomplished what we set out to accomplish in that we showed our kids and ourselves how people really live around the world, and that was our goal. Leading up to our trip, which some people ask, how was our holiday or how was our vacation? And it was neither of those. It was very much an adventure. Leading up to our trip, we asked our kids how they thought our lives compared to the lives of people in the rest of the world. And they thought that our lives in Canada were probably average, that they lived an average life and that they had average wealth. So it was a real eye opener for them to go to these places around the world. Did you know that we went to the 19 countries, 16 of them were developing countries. Mm-hmm. So what we used to call third world. So anyhow, the kids really saw, and we did too, how people really live most of the world over. And in our 8th month of travel, I decided that it would be a really good TED Talk. So that was the genesis of it.
Yeah. Well, awesome. So one of our most recent interviews is with a self-proclaimed digital nomad, Ricky Shetty, who is really our first Get Accepted participant who actually got accepted. And then he just gave his TED Talk in the Philippines, where he is temporarily living right now. He's doing a travel nomad virtual summit actually this week. Happening right now. So it's this idea is really gaining a lot of popularity, being a digital nomad full-time or even for 9 months like you and your kid. I mean, I would certainly consider you to be doing that. And you went all over the place. I love the story. It's kind of a sobering story, but you were in Cambodia and the survivors of the Pol Pot regime, and they have 1 out of 250 Cambodians are amputees because of the landmines and all these horrible things. Yet they are very, very ironically typical once we get out of the developed world. So loving, so generous, so forgiving, so magnanimous in every way. So I that was just really striking. Could you speak to that for a moment?
Certainly. Definitely one of the most profound experiences of my life and memories of all my family. We found an opportunity to stay on a small farm in the middle of Cambodia, a very non-touristy area, and to work with them, lightly volunteering with the family. And so we were provided very simple rooms and food in exchange for us helping them with mostly their coconut plantations and their okra farm. We helped them lay irrigation lines and with all of our experience and mill rice. And each night we sat and ate with the family, and they told us their stories of survival in the era of the Pol Pot time. And they had been intellectuals who had lived in the bigger cities, but they were forced to flee and become farmers during the 1980s for survival. So on the property, there were monuments that were dedicated to their parents who had gone missing, just simply walked off with soldiers one day and never returned. And I referred to a lotus pond that was in their fields, and we complimented how beautiful it was. And they told us that it was actually the result of an American B-52 bomber. And they had just left it there because it collected water. So they were just tough people and just absolutely so beautiful. And when we asked them about their feelings now, did they have resentment? Did they have anger? And they couldn't believe we were asking that question because they felt so lucky that they had survived. They had this farm. They had immense wealth in ways that we don't normally equate wealth. So it was a beautiful, beautiful experience.
I guess that, I mean, what an exercise in reframing, because from a Western, fully developed, privileged society, go over there and, we bombed you. Speaking as an American, because
I'm a
I know that
Canadian.
was, yeah, you're a Canadian.
here.
You're a Canadian. So I'm feeling a little bit more than you can be like those people to the south of us with the interesting administration right now. You could do all kinds of things, but I mean, it's amazing because their perspective, because they are so close to it, they are so thankful just for so many of them, at least in your experience that you're telling us right now. And it's so amazing because the rest of us are just trying to optimize and get to the next level and do all these things. And it really does breed discontent. We've got our Instagrams. It's like, who's going out to Tahiti this week instead of me, and everything else. And it breeds discontent and misery and depression and anxiety and all these things that we're seeing. And yet you and your husband, the kids, are completely disconnected, and you're hanging out with people who are not anywhere near as well off as we are, and yet they're actually on the inside they are way better off because they choose to see it that way. So what's the takeaway for all of us and for you?
Well, the three poorest countries that I've been to, and two of them were with our family. That was Cambodia and Nepal, and then recently I was in India for business. Mm-hmm. And I would say that they were, I didn't encounter everyone, but overall, the happiest people I've come across. So, I think we know that wealth does not equate happiness, and that as long as your, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, as long as your basic needs are being met, that happiness and wealth can have an inverse relationship than what we might expect. It's not very profound, but that's the finding.
Yeah, well, and it's funny how it all comes back to Maslow. It really does. What's the study they did? Like $70,000 American dollars is about the threshold. If you make more than that, you're not going to be any more happy. And depending on how stressful your life is, you might start declining. And once you have about 70 grand, apparently that's the price to buy off the lower levels of the hierarchy of needs.
Yeah. And I think also, some reading that I've done recently is about if you have a sense of community and if you have a sense of purpose. Those are the two biggest qualities in finding true deep happiness. And so for example, the Cambodians that we stayed with, the family, they had a 3 or 4 generation family living together. They had a beautiful community around them that they were working very cohesively with. So they had their community and they had their sense of purpose. Even the great grandma, who was hovering around 100 years old, got up every morning with a project. She had something to do. She contributed to the cooking. She contributed to the gardening. So never losing your sense of purpose and your sense of community. I guess that's the real takeaway. That's what these people have that maybe we are missing in Western society.
That's amazing, because a bunch of us are really running after purpose and what's my calling and what's my purpose, all of that. And it's like that. It's interesting because like you're going to be into purpose, and that's for so many of us. It's not communal purpose. It is kind of a self-purpose, and that's going to tend to drive us away from community because we want to be, at least for me, I want to be with intentional people who are also, kind of selfishly pursuing their own individual purpose. I don't mean selfishly in a super pejorative way, but it tends to, they tend to kind of diverge a little bit. So that's really interesting to me that you're saying that, because it can be a balance. And I may be looking at it the other way. The real way of purpose is by impacting community, or else you're not going to find purpose, might be another way of looking at it. What do you think?
I do. I think so. I think, and again, back to like happiness, I'm talking about not surface happiness, but deep, deep, deep happiness. It's very hard to be depressed when you're helping someone else, right? It's very hard to wallow in your own sorrow and pity if you're helping someone else. So again, going out into the world and having to make a pretty big effort at things and help other communities on whatever level, or just see how they're living their lives. It's hard to get really upset about, like you said, your Instagram feed or superficial nonsense like that. So Not that I don't love Instagram.
Oh, we all love Instagram.
Figuring out the balance.
We're not throwing any shade on Instagram at all. So we are enjoying this conversation with Sunny McGaw. Her talk is called Building Mental Grit Through Hard Travel. Great talk. Just came out, so congratulations. And we're going to hear a little bit more of the details of the prep and performance of that talk in just a moment in the Blitz Round. And we're back with the Blitz Round with Sunny McGaw. Her talk is called Building Mental Grit Through Hard Travel. And we're going to ask a series of either-or questions to Sunny. Sunny, are you ready?
I am ready.
All right. First off, were you invited to speak or did you apply?
I applied.
You know, what is your advice for other people who are trying to get accepted, especially as a digital nomad? Because I'm actually giving a webinar presentation as part of this virtual summit. So I'd love your tips, and I might actually include those and reference those in this webinar that I'm doing this week.
Okay, Nathan, good question. I made it like I was writing a university application, or like I was actually writing a thesis. I put about 100 hours into my application. Now I had
the application.
Because
the application.
I hit it so hard.
Wow.
So I often believe that, and I heard this from someone else, I often believe that I can't necessarily out-talent people, but I can usually out-prepare them. Mm-hmm. That's my mantra. Mm-hmm. So I wrote the application as thoroughly and completely as I could. I wrote one application, and it was my first talk of this nature. Mm-hmm. So, I hit it with all I had. I thought it was a really good theme that suited my talk, or my talk suited the theme. So I really, really wanted to get it. And I made a good video. I had a 2-minute video, and I made a good video. So that's how I applied. And
you mentioned that you realized that you're in month number 8 of the 9-month trip. You're visiting, I believe, 19 countries, and you realize almost at the end, when you're ready to come back to Toronto area, that, hey, this is going to make a great talk. So you applied, and you did it at that point, and you just did it from the field, from the road. Yes, we were in Colombia. And we had just had a very harrowing experience. We had been sick. My family. I've talked about that story. We got sick. We won't go into this too much. We're gonna give you a link to watch this. This is crazy what you went through. once we were out of the jungle, and once we were healed, I realized, wow, we've been through some really interesting things that in parenting up until these 13 years, we have not gone through any of this, and how we've grown from it. So in that month, I realized, okay, I've got a kind of a good story, a really good idea here, and that's when I wrote the application. Yeah. Well, and that was another point of commonality, because the last time I was in Delhi, I was flying out of Delhi about a year ago, last December, and that was my first experience sick on the road. And oh my word, won't get into that, but my word, it's I feel your pain. What's a tip, tool, or technique that helped you? It helped me in rehearsal. I rehearsed and rehearsed and rehearsed. And I had read that if you sound over-rehearsed, it's probably because you haven't rehearsed enough. So I also rehearsed in different scenarios. I mean, teach their own, but this is what worked for me. I'm not spontaneous. And so this right now is challenging for me. Mm-hmm. And so I had to have it, had every word. And when I said my TED Talk, I didn't miss a word, because I had rehearsed it so carefully. I rehearsed it in the car, in the shower. I rehearsed it every single morning while I walked my dog. If he could speak English, he could say my TED Talk, because I said it so many times to him. So, and I said it in different ways. I hired a voice coach who was really helpful. So I had the help of a professional. And I also said it to people. So I recruited friends who were comfortable enough to give me criticism. And to give me feedback. And I said it to my boss. So I tried to say it in intimidating situations in advance. Because if you only ever say it to yourself and your dog, well, that's not really a fair feedback loop. So I said it in situations that made me uncomfortable. And I said it when I was tired. And I said, so that I could have a wide breadth of experience in advance of going on stage. Well, and I love that. I mean, so I got to unpack this for Talk Universe here. I think I heard 3 things, and I don't know if I'm going to remember them all, but number one, rehearse so that when the time comes, you can actually be present. Number two, find a coach. Vocal coach is a great thing. And if you're looking for a TED coach or TEDx coach, make sure, if you're doing that specifically and they call themselves that, make sure they've actually given one. Because a lot of it's amazing how many people haven't actually done that. So good for you. You got a vocal coach who can help you with all of those things as well. And then number three is, I love this. You said it for your boss. You found challenging, stressful situations and conditions to perform under, so that when you actually walked out on that stage, it wouldn't be as crazy, as bad as it would normally be. And really, number four, I mean, Sonny, you know yourself, so you know that you're not that much of an improviser. I love that you talk about, one of your keys is adaptability. That's my lowest one on the on the Strength Finder profile, but you need that for travel, and you also need that to be part of a TEDx event and not be, to be an asset to people, to be easy to work with, to help and add value, to lighten the loads for the organizers and the volunteers and the sponsors and the team, instead of, being a high maintenance or a kind of a liability. So I think those things are absolutely huge. My final question for you, Sonny, is the cut for time question. What was the most painful part of your talk that you had to cut out?
Oh, you know what? That's a great question. The most painful part was one of our motives for traveling was that I had a very dear friend of mine get sick. She got cancer. And it's a good news story. She's fine. She's well. But when she went through that, I spent a lot of time with her. And I realized, my goodness, we don't know how much time we have on this planet, and how much time we have to be well, and how much time we have to live our dreams, like our trip, our travel. And that was such an important motivation for us traveling. But I did end up cutting that out of my talk. And so that was a difficult thing for me emotionally. But I like the idea of condensing things and the murder your darlings,
Yeah.
So I took that out. And I think it made for a more condensed and a stronger speech. It was just hard emotionally for me to remove it.
Which is why I asked the questions. That's exactly because we all want to pack 40 minutes into an 18 or a 12 or a 9-minute talk. And the more willing you are to slash that stuff, the better talk you're going to have and the more watchable it's going to be.
Yes. Thank you.
Well, we've been enjoying this talk with Sonny McGaw. Her talk is called Building Mental Grit Through Hard Travel. And her website is 5backpacks.wordpress.com, the number 5backpacks.wordpress.com. You can go to our show notes page at bethetalk.com and get a link to that, or a link to her talk, which is amazing also. And as well, we'll have her LinkedIn profile if you want to connect with Sonny in that way. And we'll be right back with Sonny McGaw for the final word of advice. And we're back with Sonny McGaw. It's time for the final word of advice. What is it?
Well, I guess I've spoken with many, many people who want to give TED Talks, and they all seem to have a block. I can't do it. I'm too scared. I'm too nervous. I was that. I was too scared. I was too nervous. I didn't know if I had the time. I didn't know if I had the talent. So, leap and the net will appear.
One of my least favorite sayings.
I love it. How's this? Fortune favors the bold. Better?
Love it. Love both of them. We've been enjoying this talk with Sonny McGaw. Thank you so much for joining us on the talk today and sharing your wisdom with Talk Universe.
Thanks, Nathan. Cheers.
All right. That's a wrap. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. So your final request is we have Bonnie here, and Bonnie is joining us. Welcome, Bonnie.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on the show.
You're welcome. So we are on Facebook Live right now. What I do is kind of a tradition is I have our newest talk alumni, which is Sonny, just give Bonnie a little word of advice on getting through this interview with and dealing with me.
Hey, Bonnie, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm well, thanks. Where are you?
I'm in Kansas City.
Oh, okay. Very nice. I'm in Toronto. It's very cold.
Okay.
Toronto,
All right.
Canada. Yes.
Okay.
It is snowy. Well, have a nice time. I mean, enjoy yourself.
You did a
that
great
would be
job.
my-
I wrote down something you said. It's very hard to be depressed when you're helping someone else. I have people I'm going to share that with. Thank you for saying that.
Good. You're welcome. You're welcome. A lot of learning last year for us. Okay, well, I will watch you, and good luck.
Okay.
Thanks.
All
Andy.
right.
Thank you.
So we're gonna walk.
Okay.
We're gonna walk Sunny over to the green room. Thank you so much, Bonnie. How are you?
I'm great. How are you, Nathan?
Very good. If you can do one thing for us, just tilt your laptop lid towards you, or your camera, or whatever you have. There you go.
Like that?
And what we want to do is kind of
Is that enough?
a little bit more.
Hold on. I'm on
Little
a
bit more.
stand-up desk.
Oh, you got to stand up. Okay, that's better. Yeah, I always try to kind of be even height with my guests.
Okay.
Right there. Awesome. All right. And Kansas City got a little bit of snow from what I saw from my friends in Kansas City. You guys
We
got
still have it.
nailed.
Right.
So yeah. Well, there
Where are
there
you,
are.
Nathan?
I'm outside of Philadelphia. I'm in Delaware.
Okay.
And very strange. We had our first snow about 2 weeks ago, and I was 50 miles out on Long Island watching Big Ted's Sir Ken Robinson
Oh, wow.
in person at the request of episode 150. Superintendent Michael Hines had been hosting him in his school district, and we've got like 4 or 5 inches of snow on the ground. My rental car is like rear wheel drive. I am sliding I lived in Cleveland for 11 years, never had anything like that. It was like I could barely drive in the snow at all. And then I'm stuck out on Long Island, but then the warm front came through, and by the end of the event, it was like 40 degrees again, and I just slid all the way home to Delaware, 200 miles that night. So
I think I was on the East Coast that night. I was supposed to do a retreat in Pennsylvania in Bethlehem, and then they canceled it.
Oh.
And so I went into New York City. That was a mistake.
No, yeah, that was not the place to be that day.
Right, I'm dragging my suitcase through the snow.
Oh, I'm sorry. We were sharing an experience that night. My word, yeah, Bethlehem is not too far out, and they got socked. So
they did.
That's annoying. You know,
they canceled.
Oh my gosh! But you're already out there.
Well, I know, but for the rest of the participants, it was a good thing.
But for you flew out there, and then it was like you have to come back home, and then you go out there again, maybe if they bring you back or do it virtual or whatever. Oh my gosh! Oh well, that is a lot of fun. So we're kicking off the 9 o'clock hour if you are Central, 10 o'clock here. And okay, Bonnie, where are we here? Okay, so and is it Hagemann? Am I saying
Hagemann?
Hagemann. Okay, so it's 3 syllables. Okay, Bonnie Hagemann is the CEO of Executive Development Associates, a boutique consulting firm specializing in top of the house executive development and growing high potentials into senior leaders. I love it. She has over 15 years of experience successfully leading organizations, and that is where the Calendly thing stopped. So what was the rest of that sentence, Bonnie? I'm sorry.
What successfully leading what?
Bonnie has over 15 years of experience successfully leading organizations, and that's where the form stopped. That's all I have on there. Can you help me finish the sentence?
Sure.
Sorry about that. Calendly, you got to up your game. You got to give us a
leading consulting firms through times of rapid growth, acquisitions, economic downturn, and downsizing. Did you get all that?
Leading organizations through times of economic growth, rapid downsizing, etc.
It's on go if you bonniehagemann.com.
There we are. There you are. Okay. There it is. And it is a GIF. It is text on a GIF, so I can't copy and paste it, but I can.
Oh, no.
I can remember rapid growth, acquisitions, downturn, and downsizing. Acquisitions. All right.
Okay, you know, on my website,
Rapid-
executivedevelopment.com, I have a bio on there too if you need it.
All right. Economic rapid growth, acquisition, economic downturn, and downsizing. All right. Economic growth, rapid growth is what it was. All right.
We'll get there.
I think I'm triple tasking right now. I think I got it. Through times of rapid growth, acquisitions, rapid growth, acquisition, economic downturn, and downsizing. All right, I got it now.
Can I do a chat thing for you here? Can I?
Sure
Where
you
do I
can.
do it?
It's right there in the field. Economic downturn.
This.
All right. Economic downturn.
There. And then you can copy paste off of that one.
All right, now that I typed it all in finally. There it is. Okay. All right, I got it now.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Calendly, I'm paying you a whopping $15 a month to not have to do these things, live with CEOs of boutique firms like this. I want to do my best for my guests. Oh my gosh! All right, and all right. Waiting for the fog to lift is the title of the talk, and it's BonnieHagemann.com. And any other questions for me, Bonnie?
Well, you can use my company website, executivedevelopment.com.
Okay, that's your company, so that points back to you 5 years from now, whatever. Okay.
Yeah, the other one's just a speaker bio.
Okay, executivedevelopment.com. Executivedevelopment.com.
Right.
Which is an awesome domain name.
Thank you.
Yeah. Executivedevelopment.com. It is what it is.
It is. We come up
and you didn't
front page of Google.
You didn't have to submit like a 0 instead of the O and do any of that funny stuff like the person behind you did. So
no, but this company has been in business since 1982. So
wow.
It jumped in early.
Oh, powerful stuff. All right. Well, I'm ready to go. Any questions for me?
Nope. I'm ready to go.
All right. Well, we're going to go live in 3, 2. We are live with Bonnie Hagemann. Bonnie, are you ready to talk?
I'm ready. Thank you for having me on the show, Nathan.
Bonnie Hagemann is the CEO of Executive Development Associates, a boutique consulting firm specializing in top-of-the-house executive development and growing high potentials into senior leaders. Bonnie has over 15 years of experience successfully leading organizations through times of rapid growth, acquisition, economic downturn, and downsizing. Bonnie Hagemann, welcome to the talk.
Thank you very much.
Your talk is called Waiting for the Fog to Lift. I love the allusion to the fog of war. I love the allusion to VUCA, which I've actually discussed with some other guests, that acronym standing for the conditions of a war-like environment, volatile, uncertain, changing, and ambiguous. And I love that you overcame that with your acronym CLEAR, which stands for Change, Listen, Empower, Anticipate, and Reinvent. And I love that you have that story about growing up on the farm with your father. The hailstorm or the blizzard or whatever it was came in, ruined your crop. Right. You're watching the tears coming down. Now, farmers don't cry. I grew up.
That's right.
Farmers don't cry, Talk Universe. I grew up in rural Pennsylvania. They don't cry, but your father cried. And then the next day, he thought of a way to salvage that crop. So, Bonnie, welcome to the talk.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah, that story was interesting how it came about with the TED Talk.
Yeah, well, and you got the acronyms, you've got the powerful stories, you've got the, just the persona for all of that. So, I mean, can we just kind of dig behind that story? Because it's such a great emotional. I kind of stole your thunder a little bit. I wanted to go behind the talk, quickly summarize. But what's it like for you? You were a little girl at the time. You're watching the center of your universe, I'm assuming, just do something he's very seldom do, crying. You understood the crop was ruined, but then you saw him retool and come up with a solution that actually worked the next day. Please take us to that moment. And then also, can we tie it back into how that helps you turn organizations and executives around in your current day, Bonnie?
Sure. Well, what happened was I was actually in college, so probably a little girl mentally,
No,
but
not yeah, a little older than that.
so
Okay.
a little older. I was a sophomore in college, and I went to school at a state school that was about an hour from where I grew up because we couldn't go away. We had to go home on the farm and work on the farm weekends and on the summer.
Yeah.
And so it was my sophomore year, and I was home for the summer. And I was staying with my dad, and we were in Elk City, Oklahoma. And I don't know if you've been to Oklahoma, but those who have know that the wind can be terrible there. So, everybody hears about our tornadoes, but we actually have some really strong straight winds there. Now, I don't live there now. I live in Kansas City, but the wind can be really, really bad. And that's what had happened that night. We were in the house, after dinner, sitting around, and the wind started blowing. And we had put a crop in about 3 days before. So as we're sitting there, the wind became stronger and stronger until we heard, it coming. We could hear the trees were starting to crack a little bit. We could hear it against the side of the house. And we didn't really say anything that night, but we would just look at each other. So if you've seen my TED Talk, you know this, but we would just kind of catch each other's eyes and would think, this is not good, because the farm was about 20 minutes away. And we knew that if we had to go out there, if it was as bad there as it was in town, then we were in trouble. And so the next morning, as I said on the TED Talk, we go out. It was me and my dad. We go out. We pull out to the side of the field, and we get out and walk around, and we can see that the farm is the land. The crop is gone. And so that meant a lot for us. That meant that we didn't have the money to pay back the bank because we had taken out a loan to put in the crop, which we did every year. This was a vicious cycle. And we also didn't have the profit to live on. So, that's when I saw the tears rolling down my dad's face. And of course, they're rolling down my face because he's a tough old boot. And, that doesn't happen. I think I've seen him cry twice. And so he passed a couple of years ago. But, at that point, I had seen him cry 2 times in my life when I was in college. And that was one of them. So, I was devastated. The rest of the day we were sad. We didn't really talk. We worked because that's what farmers do. But I was truly devastated. And that night, it was quiet at dinner. I went to bed, still devastated, felt like I had an elephant on my chest. I get up the next morning, still devastated. But my dad is not devastated when I go in for breakfast. And he was like writing on a piece of paper. He was excited. And I, was confused. I thought, what are you doing? And he said, well, I think I found a way to put the next crop in. And I went and I looked at the paper, and he started telling me what we were going to do to put the crop in. And, when I teach this, I teach a program called Leading with Vision. I always say, what changed? What really changed? Nothing really changed from the night before to that morning, except he had a vision to get us through this chaos. And he gave us hope. And that's what we needed. Then we just went to work and we made it happen. And so that, the analogy is when my life's work is all about developing leaders. Like, I grow leaders, and it doesn't matter if they're the teenagers across my kitchen table or the executive in the C-suite. That's what I do. And what I say is people need leadership. And when there's a lot of chaos, like the VUCA environment that you were talking about, that's chaos. That's the fog that we're living in. Then we need leaders who will put a beacon out in the distance and say, see that light? We're going to go to that light. And I know how to get there. Just follow me. Now, they may not really know how to get there, but if they have an idea and they can rally everyone around that together, they can get there.
Bonnie, I want to tie this into some of the pieces in your bio, because you really specialize in not just the acquisitions and the rapid growth and when times are good, but you're helping people when they're being downsized, when there's economic downturns, when there are disturbances out there in the force. We've been enjoying unbelievable economic growth in this country for really the last couple of years, pretty rapidly. Yesterday, or maybe it was the day before, was a little bit of a ripple out there with General Motors at the time of this recording, and possibly closing some plants. So we've been almost immune to some of this news, but we're hearing it a little bit again. What's your advice to people, whether times are good? Companies are merging and they're still laying off, and they're still doing this to increase their profit share and the revenues and their returns and whatnot. So, I mean, take us back to almost really losing the crop, but your father's persistence, determination, and then what you saw and what you're doing, how that spirit is living on today. Can you give us a couple of examples or case studies of some real turnarounds that you're working with right now?
Well, let me tell you about my own turnaround. So running consulting firms that are in the leadership development space, when you have economic downturn, you're going to feel some pain. So everyone in my industry felt a lot of pain with some of our largest organizations having to lay off as much as 70% of their workforce. Now, I had a boutique consulting firm, but we went completely upside down because I had just completed an acquisition in 2007, and then the 2008 crisis came. And so, we've got debt from the acquisition, and then all of a sudden, all this business is just dropping like flies. And so there was a day I remember being on my face, ready to quit. And I tears, it's just me. I was by myself, but I was just down on my face thinking, I can't get up. Like, I can't go on. And it was funny because my kids were a little younger then. They're 21 and 16 now. But I did get up, of course, in a little bit after I stopped feeling sorry for myself, having a pity party. And I got up and I thought, that's funny. The sun's still shining. And the kids still need dinner. And I think it's going to be okay. So it was just the realization, like, yes, it's painful and all of that, but everybody's alive. Everybody's going to have dinner. It's going to be okay.
Now, can I throw in just kind of a hindsight perspective? Have you found in hindsight, Bonnie, that was actually a really good time to expand or acquire, just because of the talent being less costly, less willing to be recruited somewhere else? Is there a flip side to the coin in hindsight, or a little different for you?
Well, it would have been. So if I had tried to do the acquisition in 2009, that would have been a great time to do that.
Oh, so it was so you bought high and sold low.
So that wasn't such a great time. But to talk about the leading through chaos part. So I have this incredible advisory board. And at the time, I went to see one of my advisory board members who was, he was in his almost about 70 years old. His name was Dr. Jerry Davis. He was a dean at the Senior Service College in Huntsville, Alabama. And I flew to see him. And, he's just wise. He'd been through a lot. And I told him what was going on, thought I might have to close it down. And he said, look at me, Bonnie. You're going to make it through this. And, he said, just keep your head down, keep your company up. You are going to make it through. And again, nothing changed. Except he gave me hope. And so that, that's what I teach the leaders is, give people hope, show them there is a way through this and that you're willing to take the hard steps to get through it.
I think Napoleon found the same thing to be true, that everyone needs hope, and that men will die for medals. Men will die for ribbons. It's amazing what inspires the human spirit. Really, what's next for you? I mean, you're doing all of this stuff with your firm. You're developing leaders. Are you continuing to do more of the same, or are there some new initiatives that you have on the stove?
Oh, I always have new initiatives, but the company itself continues to do top of the house executive development. I personally have, started coaching leaders, at the bottom of the company, and now I'm working up at the C-suite and with the boards, and that's my favorite work of all, is working with the C-suite. I like the one-on-one better than anything else. So a lot of what I do is just to have the opportunity to do that. So I'm doing more of that. But every 2 to 3 years since the early 80s, Executive Development Associates has done this trends in the executive development research. And companies all around the world contribute, and then they use it as a benchmark when we publish the report. So I'm working right now on the new one with my co-authors, and it will come out in January. And so for the next 2 or 3 years, we will be talking about those trends. And so just to give you a little sneak peek, one of the trends that we're going to be talking about is the fact that VUCA is now like the new normal. It is table stakes. It is not, the fog isn't going to lift. This is what we live in. And we need leaders we've all sort of, in trying to adjust, we've added more and more stuff. And so we've added, I got to do technology and innovation. And yet I still am running my normal operations. And so what we see as we really analyze the data is it's time for leaders to take a long, slow look down. Slow it down for a minute and think, what does all of this mean? Are we really making the right decisions? And start cutting the things that are not the right decisions, because we can't just keep adding and think we're going to be able to handle that.
I got to ask you this next question. I mean, we talk about leadership, and then they've got that dichotomy of management versus leadership,
right,
and all of that. What's your read? What's your vibe on management? Because is there such a thing as managers anymore? I mean, there are a few behemoth large organizations, but when you say VUCA is the new normal, and it really is, right, more and more and more, I just think about some of these companies that I used to contract for, where it was just like the last bastions of management. What would you say to some of those companies that they're feeling the heat? They have deep pockets. They're going to be able to survive for maybe a few more years or even decades. But what do they really need to be doing with their mid-level and basic level managers to really infuse basic leadership skills, and as a culture in there?
Right. Well, there's a couple of things. So a friend of mine, uses this phrase, who's actually a CEO, says, leaders lay the tracks and managers keep the train on the tracks. So that's just a good analogy to think, okay, well, a leader is the one who's sort of the looking out, trying to figure out where do we even need a track? And then the managers, which may also be the leaders, are saying, okay, now let's keep it on the track. So that's just sort of that analogy. But as companies need to make the shift to the new normal, what the big thing they have to do now is empower the people closest to the work to make the decisions. That doesn't mean we don't need managers and leaders. What it means is that we need to make sure that we equip those people on the front lines to make the decision. So, for example, like we're seeing, Agile is really taking off in the tech world. And they actually have great concepts that I think should apply company-wide, which is let the people close to the work consult up to the decision makers and say, I might say, well, I want this piece of technology, and they might say, and I'm willing to pay $40,000, and they might say, well, great, but we can do it for 10. So, we need to empower them to be able to make good decisions. That's the first thing. We need to do training. Companies are not as good as training as the military, for example. So if you're in the military, if you're asked to do something, you get training, no matter what it is. Like you'll be in a flight simulator or however it is, you're going to be trained. And in corporate America, we are not as good at that. So we'll say, okay, you did a good job. We're going to put you in management. Good luck.
Good luck.
by the way, all your friends, you can't really be friends with them anymore because you're one of us.
Yeah.
Right. So, that's not appropriate, right? We've got to train people. I always say, ask yourself what in their background would have taught them how to do this. And if the answer is nothing, then someone needs to teach them how to do it. So that's the piece we have to do for them. And then leaders, they set the vision, the strategy, the values, and then they check for alignment to make sure that the people that are empowered are aligned.
Well, we've been enjoying this talk with Bonnie Hagemann. Her talk is called waiting for the fog to lift. And we're going to talk a little bit more about her talk. And we're going to pivot over at this time over to the Blitz Round. And it's time for the Blitz Round with Bonnie Hagemann. I'm going to ask her a series of either-or questions related to the preparation and performance of her recent talk. Bonnie, are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. Were you invited to speak or did you apply?
Well, that's a funny story. I was thinking about that. I was like, how did that happen? So I didn't apply. I did after the fact. But what happened was I travel all the time for my work. And I realized I had lived in Kansas City and didn't really have friends in Kansas City. So I told one of my consultants who invited me to a brunch. And there I met Alana Mueller, who runs Coffee Lunch Coffee. She's a great networker here in Kansas City. And because I met her there, she introduced me to the person who was Sherry Jacobs, who was running the TED Talk. And we ended up through a series of conversations. I was recommended. And then that's how we got started. And I did apply, but after the fact.
Yeah, well, and utilize your network, Talk Universe.
Right,
I think
exactly.
that's the key.
Tell people what you need.
Yeah, absolutely. So in terms of your preparation, are you a memorizer, improviser, or blender?
Well, I am learning new things. So at the time of the TED Talk, what I did was I did hire a TED Talk coach. I've been through many speaking coaches and trainings and all of that, but I hired one specifically for the TED Talk. He beat me up mercilessly. I mean, I really left thinking I hate him and I feel terrible. But he is the one who got the dad story out of me. And everyone talks about my dad's story.
Yeah, and that's the piece. I mean, here's the thing, talking about. I'm taking a little bit of a sidestep, armchair quarterback here, but I mean, it's great. We all have acronyms, we all have principles, we all want to lead with the principles. But what a good TED coach is going to do is pull the vulnerable story of farmer dad. Farmers don't cry, but this farmer cried, and Bonnie was right there, and that's the emotional. That's the piece that we remember, and that's the piece that really makes Bonnie's talk unique. It's I've even said no disrespect in any way to Bonnie. There are many talks about war and confusion, and I've heard the VUCAN acronym before, and I've heard some of these things before, and what makes it really extra special and unique is Bonnie's vulnerability to share this emotional story of her awesome father who the next morning wakes up with a plan. It's almost like something out of the A-Team. I remember that show. I love it when a plan comes together.
Right.
And that's the piece. Yeah. That's the piece that none of us really want to do, to be that vulnerable. But that's the piece that really makes this a talk instead of a great workshop or keynote or presentation. Bonnie, next question. What's a tip, tool, or technique that helped you?
Well, I did memorize the talk because of the 17 minutes. Like, I often present in more of an academic format, which is, I have my slides, I have my research, and so getting all of that into a story form and making it into 17 minutes was, oh my gosh, that's really hard. Yeah. So I did memorize it. So practice, practice, practice.
What's your advice to other executives who are really top of their game? You're used to flying around, getting paid, doing, very well recompensed trainings and all of that. And then you get invited to give this talk, and then you find out they're really inviting you to put on an extra, 50, 60 hours of unpaid extra work of time that you don't have. And it's so tempting. It's got to be so tempting to just kind of do the same thing you do with everybody, just kind of pivot 10% and adjust it 10%. It doesn't work that way. We both know it. What's your advice to other people who are really top of their game to really put in that extra work? What gave you the motivation, and what's your advice for them?
Well, I give myself the same talk I give the leaders that I coach, which is bring your A game every day. And so an A game for a TED Talk is not just doing what I always do. It's really preparing. It's hiring the coach. It's spending the time. I remember that it was in 2016 when I gave the TED Talk, and that Christmas, right before Christmas, I spent 2 days of my time off that I had blocked getting coached.
Right before Christmas.
right before Christmas.
Ho,
So,
ho,
you know,
ho. Merry Christmas.
just, you know, if you're going to be at the top of your game, you have to play like a professional.
Absolutely. Here's the cut for time question. What was the most painful part of your talk to cut out?
That I cut out. I think what was hard for me was shifting from the academia, you know, sort of method of showing my research first. I think that's almost like a comfort area for me, is to start with, here's all the credible stuff behind what I'm going to say. And so to have to say it without building my credibility with the research first, that was a little scary.
Well, thank you for doing that, because whether you're in medicine or you're in academia, as I used to be, I used to adjunct myself. So we want to, and it's almost like for a TED Talk, it's like it's almost a hiding behind the data. It's one thing to say, hey, here's case study 1, 2, and 3. Here's what's a little intriguing about what they have in common, and here's how I changed in the process, and here's how you could change too and walk out of here. But you know, it's a different format. So congratulations for you cutting out the piece that your research heavy firm is, you know, that's part of your A game. And so for you to start out with a personal story is absolutely huge as well. Bonnie, what is the most unexpected, strange, or just plain weird thing that happened during or right before your talk?
Well, that's a good question. What was the weirdest thing? I think one of the weirdest things was we were just sitting in the back, and I really, you know how they say you get a knot in your stomach, and you know, people say they're going to throw up. You know, I've only had that happen twice, and that was one of them. So
and you're jetting around, you're talking, you're accomplished public speaker.
There's only 100 people in that venue where we were. That was all the tickets that they sold. So it wasn't like there was a big crowd. I have spoke much bigger crowds. But what was going on was they were supposed to live stream ours. So ours was supposed to be one of the ones that was, you know, so that's what was getting me. I was like, you know, who's watching? How many? Like, that was making me really nervous. Now, the technology didn't work. So but I didn't know it until after. So I wish I had known that before. That would have helped me.
Well, you realize we're live streaming right now, so no pressure or anything. But we don't have millions of people watching, unfortunately, because of the Facebook algorithm. But how much fun is this? We've been enjoying our Blitz round with Bonnie Hagemann. Her talk is called "Waiting for the Fog to Lift." Any leaders, any executives, any corporations that are going through the life cycle of corporations, they need to hear this talk. And you can connect with Bonnie. You can watch the talk on our website at bethetalk.com on our show notes page, as well as you can connect with her at executivedevelopment.com. Great domain name, executivedevelopment.com. We will also have a link on our show notes page to connect with Bonnie's firm, and keep your eyes out for this amazing research that's about to be published by her firm. That's going to be really great. I hope, you know, I hope I can at least get a little bit of a sneak peek, just because it's curious to me, being somewhat in that space as well. And we're going to be right back with Bonnie Hagemann in the final word of advice in just a moment. And we're back with Bonnie Hagemann. It is time for the final word of advice. What is it?
Okay. Well, can I give it to you?
Please do.
Okay, first of all, on the TED Talk is just, you know, get out there and like do the networking, find out who's running it, start making connections, you know, and get in front of the people who are building the TED Talk in your area. And then just in general for leadership, you know, people really do need leaders. So if you have any desire whatsoever, you know, you see a leadership gap, step in it.
Bonnie Hagemann, thank you so much for coming on the talk today, carving out time in your busy schedule, and sharing your wisdom with Talk Universe.
Thank you, Nathan.
All right, that's a wrap. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Appreciate this.
Yeah. Well, hey, how awesome is that? Isabelle is in the green room. We're going to keep the chain alive here. Isabelle, how you doing? This is the fun thing. I don't know if you can hear us. Isabelle.
Wow, what a great setting. Love her office.
Yeah, love it too. I'm seeing kind of like this. I don't know if Isabelle can hear me, but I'm seeing like part of her. There you go. Hey, Isabelle, can you hear us?
I can't hear you though. Can you hear me?
You can't hear us.
Yeah,
I
we
can
can hear
hear you,
I can't
but
hear
you
a
can't
thing.
hear us.
So my microphone is working. I've used it this morning. I can't
That's
hear
strange.
you guys.
That's really strange. Do you have, is that an earbud in your ear that I see? You got your earbuds and everything? Or no? Do you have
That's an
earbuds?
earring.
Earrings. Okay.
No, I use my my system that I use every day. It works all the time.
Oh,
I've
isn't
been
that
on
strange?
many lives.
Okay.
Get out and come back in.
Yeah, that's the best thing to do. Just drop
I'll
out and then
assume
sit
that you're
back. I'm
saying
sure
yes.
it'll be
Okay.
fine. I'm sure it'll be fine. So, well, that's Isabelle, and she'll be right back. Bonnie, if you have a second, I'd love to talk barbecue with you. Where is the best place in Kansas? I love Kansas City barbecue. I've been to a couple of. I've been to Jack Stack's. I've been to some of the different. What is the best place? Because if we're talking, you were just here in the Philly area, we'd be talking cheesesteak. But
Right, of course.
I want to talk barbecue. What's the best barbecue?
Okay. Well, my favorite is Arthur Bryant's. I love their burn-ins. That's, to me, by far the best in
burn-ins are
Kansas
great.
City.
Yeah.
However, voted best was, I think they renamed it, but it was Oklahoma Joe's.
Okay, I've
Maybe
heard of
now
them.
it's just, I think they got rid of the Oklahoma because so many people were complaining.
Should be Missouri Joe's or
I know,
Kansas
it's like,
Joe's or
excuse
something.
me, the best barbecue in Kansas City is Oklahoma Joe's. So,
Yeah, a little
but
bit
it's
of.
not my favorite. My favorite's Arthur Bryant's.
Oh, isn't that funny? Okay, well, great. Well, that was some of the most from an expertise perspective, some of the most important stuff we've been talking about in this interview, because of course it's regional food. So
Exactly.
we're going to check back in here with Isabelle, who I hope is not a vegan or
Yay.
vegetarian. I hope that wasn't offensive to any of you in Talk Universe or whatever. When you're talking to people from Kansas City, you gotta go into the barbecue debate. Isabelle, can you
Exactly.
hear us okay now?
I can hear you guys. Okay.
Woohoo! All right. So what I'm going to do, this is kind of tradition. Bonnie is our newest, most beloved Talk alumni at this point, and I always ask my newest alumni of them all, well over 325 at this point in time. Bonnie is the newest, and Bonnie is going to give Isabelle some advice with this interview that you're about to be subjected to and dealing with me.
Awesome.
Hello, Isabelle. Where are you today?
I'm in the News Bay on Vancouver Island.
Oh, nice. I love your office. That looks gorgeous.
Thank you.
So, well, good luck. I know you'll bring your expertise and do a fantastic job. So I'll get out of here and hand you the baton.
I'm ready.
Okay.
Bonnie, we'll escort you over to the green room. Take care. It's so enjoyable. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us.
Thank you so much. Good luck, Isabelle.
Thank you.
All right, Isabelle, how are you?
I'm doing awesome. How are you?
Yes, great. Great. Is that your agency back there?
It is, yes. This is my office here, specifically at Trailblazers. We're located at the retreat center for small business owners, located on Vancouver Island, Canada. Beautiful part of the world. And
Trailblazers. Yeah. So is this like one of those corporate brainstorming retreat kind of places?
Exactly. And
how cool.
Branding influence, increasing influence. And I work with disruptors. So
wow.
And brainstorm so we can disrupt.
Yeah, well, I've been to a couple places like that. Most notably, there's a place in Columbus, Ohio called Spark Space, and it's the same kind of thing. You go in and do you have like different theme rooms and Nerf guns or things, little disruptive things like that, or do you have like programs or workshops or things like that you do, or you?
All of the above. All of the above. We work with custom, so we build custom experiences for depending on which company and what they need. We also have predetermined themes like how to write and deliver a kick butt TEDx talk. I think I'm gonna sneeze. Sorry.
Yep. I did that in the middle of Bonnie's interview. I actually hit the mute button because my tea went down the wrong pipe, and I had to let loose a couple of hacks. But I think I successfully did the mute button because Bonnie just kept right on talking, so it worked. I'm getting the nod. I'm getting the nod from the green room. I see. After you do this a couple of hundred times on Zoom, you get the fine tuning piece right there, which is great. All right, Isabelle. So let's see here. We've got some apostrophes, which always put in weird characters. All right, is Isabelle Mercier? Mercier is perfect. Mercier, okay, that's from my French class. Isabelle Mercier is a no-nonsense dynamo. Yes, born to catapult passionate entrepreneurs to build infectious and impactful brands, businesses, and lives. And it's leapzonestrategies.com. The talk is called The Power of Zero Tolerance, which is love your talk. So any questions for me?
Questions from me to you?
Yes. Before I hit the little podcast within the broadcast button.
Got it. You know what? I'm very good at going with the flow.
All right.
I will just follow your lead, and I know it'll be a very impactful talk. The other question is, do I need to have the link prepared for the actual gift at the end of this, or can I send that to you after?
I can put that in the show notes page.
Okay, perfect. All good.
Yeah. So I can do that. I have Lester, my talk ninja, who does all of that stuff for me. Awesome. I love that guy because I've done interviews today, and it's like I'm having great riveting conversation, and then the person vanishes into a black square. It's like, oh boy, that happened a little earlier this morning, but it's all good. So, okay. All right. So Isabelle, we are going to go live here in 3, 2. We are live with Isabelle Mercier. Isabelle, are you ready to talk?
I was born ready.
Isabelle Mercier is a no-nonsense dynamo born to catapult passionate entrepreneurs to build infectious, impactful brands, businesses, and lives. Isabelle Mercier, welcome to the talk.
Thank you. I'm thrilled to be here. It's exciting.
Your talk is called The Power of Zero Tolerance. And I love your HERO acronym that you talk about in your talk. And I love the story. I don't love the story of you being bullied by mean girls, but I love how you pleaded with your mother when the bully called you on the phone. Do not tell the bully I'm not here. I don't want to deal with it. And your mama knew the right thing to do. And mama said, Isabelle's right here. Let me get her for you. And you had to confront your fear. And that turned into this acronym HERO to defeat worry by hushing, evaluating, ritualizing, and owning our stuff. But take us back behind the talk, and maybe let's go back to that story of your high fashion sense childhood, which you gave us a yearbook photo so that we could understand your fashion sense in the early days.
Wasn't that an epic pair of glasses?
Well, we all have that photo. Even it doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman. We all look like that. We all saw ourselves in your yearbook photo. Was that the second grade or something?
Somewhere around there. I was 9 years old. So
9 years old. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. And I remember that day like it was yesterday, honestly. And what my mom did that day for me, although I wanted to hit her, I was not happy. But what she did for me is that she gave me permission to really own what I do want and what I don't want. And her words were exactly this. She said, Isabelle, if you can't say no to what you don't want, you'll never have the time and the energy for what you do want. And I don't know what happened there, but that hit me like a ton of bricks. I thought, oh my God, she's right. And I stood up for myself that day. Fortunately, it actually worked for me. Now, it's not like it was a magic pill by no means, but the essence of her message at that point was so potent for me that I thought, my God, that can be applied in 1,000 different situations. You know, we're a society that say yes way more than we should. We say yes more often than we want to, and for reasons of, you know, not opening up a can of worms, we don't want to not please, we don't want to hurt, we want to be loved and appreciated and seen in our good light. So we say yes far too many things. And it got me obsessed. At 9 years old, I became obsessed with really understanding the power behind being able to say no. Because when you say yes willingly, it opens up beautiful opportunities. When you say yes, when you mean to say no, it kills dreams, it creates worry. And over the years, I discovered that for everything that you worry about, there's 100% of the time something behind that you're actually tolerating. And that's the thing. A lot of people want to live with less worry. And how can you attack worrying less? Worry is a natural response.
Yeah.
However, reducing worry is way more difficult than looking at what the hell we're tolerating and getting rid of that.
Talk Universe needs to forgive me here for this. And I'm getting some feedback all of a sudden, which is really strange that I didn't have before. And now I'm not getting it anymore. So I'm going to repeat what I just said. Talk Universe is going to have to forgive me for my vice of turning everything into a Seinfeld reference from 20 years ago. But it's almost like we're walking around. The whole premise of Seinfeld is they were doing just that, Isabelle. They're saying yes to social New York City pressure of all of these hidden strings and agendas and things like that. And so few of them had the courage to actually say no. And the whole thing is about nothing, but it's really about saying yes to things instead of saying no. So it just seems like we're walking around, and that's why it's so funny and relatable, is because we can all relate to wanting to say yes, this extreme social pressure that's so insidious. And if we could just do what you talk about in your talk, which is just say no, what your mom had the clarity of mind to teach you to do, we would have a lot less social pressure, worry, everything else. So, you know, what was the next thing? Take us back to 9 years old. You just said no to the bully. What was the next thing in your life? Can you remember the next thing that you had the power to say no to?
You know, there's been so many. While I was younger, I remember there was a big party that we all needed to be at. Otherwise, we would be seen as not in the in crowd. And that party wasn't for me. I didn't want to go. And again, it was one of those, like, I remember having meetings around the dinner table with my mom debating. My mom was always a pro list and a con list, you know, and she would always have me sit there and go, give me the top 10 pros and the top 20 cons or whatever. She didn't put a number, but, you know, and then, you know, I would sit there and actually make my own list. And she would make me realize that a lot of the pros, when I wanted to say no, a lot of the pros on the list were actually not important. They were social pressure. They were things that actually at the end of the day will matter for only 1 minute versus what could happen long term if I learn to not respect what I want. And I have a tattoo here on my arm. I have many tattoos, but one of them says, happiness is when what I think, what I say, and what I do are in harmony. And it really has taught me, my mom has really taught me that, which is the funny thing, because at the end of my talk, it's payback time for my mom, right? Oh my God.
No, it certainly is.
Yeah.
I'm getting that echo again. I hope that it goes away.
Is it when you speak or when I speak?
It's when I speak. I'm actually hearing the speakers, I think, going back in the mic. So if you can turn the volume down a little bit, that may help with that. And I'm making an issue of it just because I want my audio guy to know that he knows that I know that he'll need to chop this little piece out. And I don't hear it anymore. So this is great. So I'm going to jump right back in at this point. We've been enjoying this talk with Isabelle Mercier. Her talk is called The Power of Zero Tolerance, and how important is it to let our yes be yes and our no be no as well, and have the power to say no. And we're going to pivot over to you, Talk Universe, in the Blitz Round. And it's time for the Blitz Round with Isabelle Mercier. I'm about to ask Isabelle a series of either-or questions related to the prep and performance of her recent talk. Isabelle, are you ready?
I am as ready as I'm going to be.
All right. First question. Were you invited to speak or did you apply?
I was invited to speak.
So in terms of your preparation, are you a memorizer, improviser, or a blender?
I'm normally an improviser, which you don't improvise a TED Talk. So normally I improvise. My TED Talk, I did memorize it. And a funny bit here is my biggest fear on this planet was to flub on a massive worldwide stage. And I did. I actually forgot where I was at in my presentation and in my TED Talk. It was an epic moment. I dealt with it beautifully. And the audience, most people thought that it was an audience tactic, engagement tactic, but no, I literally flubbed. And it actually empowered me to know that I can deal with every situation in my own way, which is perfect.
All right. Well, you fooled me because I did not catch that moment. Can you enlighten me?
Yeah, they've removed it.
It was edited. But obviously, if the audience thought it was some kind of audience engagement Jedi mind trick or something like that, that's not too bad either.
Not too bad, except that at some point I had to actually be vulnerable and say, all right, no, I don't know where I'm at here. Nobody was throwing me a line. The line came from a friend of mine who practiced with me in the audience.
Oh,
and
wow.
I laughed. Yeah, it was amazing. I said to the audience, and that's why it pays to practice with friends.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
And I love that because you got through it, and that sometimes you can't edit, but sometimes, it is helpful and you were able to do that. So good for you. What's a tip, tool, or technique that helped you?
Oh my God. For me, in learning my talk, you mean?
Learning, giving.
Learning, giving.
Yeah.
For me to learn it, I really had to practice every single bit many, many times. I had many weeks, and I had first week was I'm practicing part one. So I'm dyslexic. So this is an extra added challenge for me. But I divided my talk in 8 parts, and I had 8 weeks, and basically I would practice each part until I knew it backwards, upside down, fast and buffooned, and I practiced this in many, many, many ways. And to come back to one of your previous question of if I was asked or if I applied, I was asked 3 years in a row. I did not want to do a TED Talk. TED Talk was not on my bucket list. But at some point I thought, with the impact that I want to create, this was going to be a perfect venue for it. So practice. We had a lot of practices. When people did not take their 20-minute practice spot during the day of a TEDx Stanley Park, I would jump in and practice some more. So for me, even though I'm a seasoned speaker, this one stressed me and I worried about it. No pun intended, because I'm talking about not worrying. And so practicing and really allowing me to be present and vulnerable really, really helped.
I love this because Talk Universe, most of us are trying to get accepted. Most of us are in the camp where we're applying and we're trying to get accepted. Isabelle is, moving and shaking at a level where she was repeatedly invited and did not want to give a talk because she knew about the format, the specific style, and the amazing amount of work that it takes to effectively look good on stage and give a talk as opposed to your normal keynote or presentation. Yeah. So I'd like to ask this question, as somebody who was invited to speak, how did you, Isabelle, overcome the temptation to just kind of wing it and maybe customize your normal keynote paid chemo presentation 10% and just try to get by with that. Obviously, you worked very, very hard. You took it very, very seriously. And taking your own medicine, you said no the first 2 times, which is what your whole talk is all about. So when you did say yes, when you realized you wanted the benefits of that outweighed the costs, that 3rd year, what's your advice to other people that are kind of, jet setting around and they know they could kind of try to get by with their normal talk? What would you say to them?
You can't get by with your normal talk. It is not the same format. It is not the same delivery method. It is not the same architecture. So for me, I had to completely forget my previous talks and actually completely rewrite it with the architecture in mind of a TEDx architecture. So I basically had to have the guts to just go, okay, everything I know about speaking out the window. Everything I know about writing a talk and having potent bullet points and just ad-libbing because I have 25 years experience, I thought, no, I'm gonna find myself as a brand new student. And I'm very glad I approached it that way. I saw some of the people approach it in a way of, I know how to speak. I've spoken before. This is my talk. And the difference in difficulty level that they've experienced compared to the difficulty level that I've experienced were very different. They fought through the entire process. Whereas I just thought, you know what? Let's throw what I know out the window. Let's see what else I can learn, how else I can expand, and how else. For me, vulnerability was my big power and confidence I have. Vulnerability, I had to work on that. And I've hired a couple of coaches actually to help me specifically with the way I delivered in a learned environment, in a memorized environment, to give it in a way that is vulnerable, authentic, real, and not look like it's been learned by heart. That was the biggest challenge for me.
Well, and that's huge. And so there are all kinds of different coaches out there. There are vocal coaches. There are TED coaches that call themselves TED coaches who've never actually given TED Talks. There are those that actually have given TED Talks, which are the better ones to have. And then you've got a vulnerability coach. So this is a little bit of a first because vulnerability is so critical. It really separates this format from everything out there. So I'd love, would you tell us a little bit of the key piece on vulnerability that your coach helped you get? Because that's something I've never heard before.
Yeah, as speakers, we want to deliver with potency and confidence, and there's a little part that we need to be personable. We need to be relatable, and I've always delivered in a way that is definitely less vulnerability, a lot more confidence and potency. And so we did exercises of intonation of voice, pausing, telling stories in the middle of a talk that has nothing to do with this, that brings me to tears. And vulnerability doesn't mean crying. Vulnerability also means just putting yourself in a place where you're able to tell a story that will land, that people will go, oh, even though I haven't gone through this exact story, I feel for you, I get it. And I remember going to an event in Whistler, Canada, specifically on to help deliver TED Talks or to help deliver talks. And initially, the coaches would put you, I'll speak for me, they put everybody in the audience, they would have 2 minutes on stage to actually answer a question that is not known to them at the time. And the way and of course they have you wait there and they observe you to see in the midst of being in front of people without something to do, how do you react? What do you do? Do you start joking? Do you start saying things, or do you just stand there with yourself? And so they literally looked at my every moves before, during, and after the answer. I don't even remember. I think the question was, Isabelle, what are you hiding? I don't even remember.
Oh my word.
Yeah,
of all the high pressure interview technique, I mean, that comes right from I don't know where the CIA back. I don't know where that comes from. What a powerful
It was an
social experiment.
Totally. And then I had 2 minutes to answer. So they had me do nothing there on stage.
Which is an eternity to answer a question like that. How do you dodge? What are you hiding, Isabelle, for 2 minutes?
And I honestly do not remember what I said. I had my heart was beating over here. And then from how you were while you were on stage, without the question, before the question, during the question, and after the question, because after they deliberate and you're there waiting, your heart's pounding, and they give you 2 cards. And I got vulnerability and grace, which were the 2 things within those 5 days that I had to totally submerge myself in and learn. And I have to say that experiment for me was the experiment that had me say yes to the TEDx opportunity, because the call came in the very next day that I actually did this experiment. And I felt like I could own and I could do this. Now, TEDx preparation for a good TEDx is 5 to 7 months. This is not a 2-minute, and I have to say this whole experiment and my coaches that have helped me literally deliver with more vulnerability and power and grace. That was not only epic for my talk, it was epic for my life.
We've been enjoying the Blitz round, and I've got that echo again.
Oh,
I'm going to pause. All right. All right. Okay, we don't have an echo anymore. All right, Lester. We've been enjoying the Blitz round with Isabelle Mercier, and her talk, again, is called The Power of Zero Tolerance. You can go to our show notes page at bethetalk.com. We'll have a link to that talk that you got to watch to see the power of Isabelle's vulnerability and high energy really combined in a way that resonates with the audience, exactly as we've been talking about. And we have a way that you can connect to Isabelle at leapzonestrategies.com, leapzonestrategies.com. I believe she has an ebook called 12 Smart Principles to Be the First, the Best, or the Only. And we'll have a link where you can get that ebook as well. And Isabelle said something about a special gift for our guests, so we will include a link to that, whatever that may be, in our show notes as well. And we'll be back in just a moment with the final word of advice. And it's time for the final word of advice with Isabelle Mercier. What is it?
The final word of advice would be own your power, own your difference. In every talk, and I've been a TEDx Talk mentor now for the past 3 years, and a lot of people have amazing things to say, things that are impactful, things that are interrupting, and that is very powerful. We also need to learn how to deliver with power and grace and confidence. And I think I'm going to double click on this vulnerability. For me, what has actually made my talk go to almost 2 million views in a very short amount of time is not only the power that the talk at the message has, but also the way in which it's being delivered. And I had to go through all the skeletons in the closet to actually really learn to really own my good, my bad, and my ugly in order to deliver with authenticity, vulnerability, and ultimately better influence. And it's all about owning your true gifts, owning your genius. I remember many times during the practice, the coaches at TEDx would say, we would like for you to tweak this in your talk or tweak that in your talk. And most of the time, I took the advice and went, yeah, that makes sense. There was many times where it was pivotal, where I had to say, no, my talk is not about worry. My talk is about what you tolerate, you worry about. Therefore, I need to stick with what I wholeheartedly believe here. And the power to really be able to say yes when you mean to say yes and no when you mean to say no brings freedom.
Isabelle Mercier, thank you so much for carving out time in your busy schedule to share your wisdom with Talk Universe today.
Absolute pleasure anytime.
That's a wrap. Thank you so much.
How was that for you? Was it good?
It was excellent. How was that, Bonnie? We're bringing Bonnie back up here.
I thought it was
She
excellent.
stuck around. Wasn't that something?
Yes,
Nice.
that was very good. Thank you for sharing. And I just did a little call out for you on the website.
Nice.
Awesome. All right. Well, we have our next guest. Samir Sood is right here. Samir, how you doing, buddy?
Not too bad. It's good to be here. Thanks for having me, Nathan.
Yeah. Now bring me up to speed, because your talk was a couple of years ago. Are you a resident at this point? Or are you still a medical student? Where?
No, I went on to do residency. I'm a second-year family medicine resident at Duke University.
All right.
Yeah, today's one of my days off, my rare days.
Duke.
So I'm like trying
Wow.
to do too much. Yeah.
Well, that's huge. So we have our two newest talk alumni. We have Bonnie Hagemann and we have Isabelle Mercier. I'm going to let Isabelle do the honors. I'm going to step out of the camera for just a minute, and then I will be right back. But what we like to do is have them give you advice on how to deal with me and this wonderful interview that you're about to experience here. So this is being broadcast still, so just so that everybody know that, I'm going to step out, and Isabelle, I'll let you go first.
Awesome. Yeah, absolutely. You know what? It was totally a fun experience. He's a fantastic interviewer, and when he asks you questions, don't answer. That'd be my advice. Just kidding.
Just hang up.
There, no. No, you know what? He's a great interviewer. He will actually look at different angles of your talk. I'm looking forward to learning from you and your talk as well. And yeah, it's for me, it's all about just being present, right? Being present. I wasn't prepared at all for this interview, and I prefer to not be prepared. Actually, it just feels like it's a little bit more authentic and off the cuff, you know. So
Cool.
Yeah, it'll be fun. What? Tell me, what was your talk about?
Yeah, it was. So I was a second-year medical student at the time. So the title of it is "I'm Killing My Mind to Save a Life." Just sort of my take on early medical education. And we all know healthcare is in the state that it is in. And that was my, I guess, thesis on what I had experienced so far and some theories as to why.
Yeah.
Starting with basic medical education, why we're trained or how we're trained that way, and kind of the outcomes it may or may not lead to. I weaved in a personal story. One of my friends who had lymphoma at age 23, and just his diagnostic or lack thereof journey. And then just my background as an engineer, and I kind of what I think healthcare or medical education rather is lacking. And I guess at this point, what's cool is I've finished my medical education aspect of it. I'm now in my formal training aspect of it, and just have a ton more experiences and viewpoints. And I'm just older at this point. Well, it's been 4 years or so that I'd love to share and talk about. So it's been interesting.
Nice. Awesome. You might want to lower your camera, because all we see is your eyes and forehead.
Really? Okay.
We'll work on that in a moment, but yeah, I like to sit similar height to everybody, so we'll work with Samir on that. Thanks for holding down the fort for me, Isabelle and Bonnie. Man, this is going to be great. Now, Samir's talk, I'm really looking forward to this, because I just had a friend. I have a number of well, Bonnie, this is right up your alley with leadership. So I've been with the author John Maxwell. A number of Talk Universe people know I'm part of his founding team, and he invited me to Guatemala about 5 years ago to roll out this training, and then Paraguay and whatnot. And I've met other physicians. Not too many of them, but there are a few physicians who are also part of the John Maxwell team as leadership coaches and things like that, really impacting healthcare. And so we did a teleseminar for first-year medical residents on work-life balance. My friend, Dr. Inga, formerly from Harvard and Boston Children's Hospital, she's a pediatric oncologist. I moderated this thing. She did a session on work-life harmony and balance. We did a piece on negotiating your first physician salary with, I think that was Christopher Burton. Dr. Christopher Burton did that. And then we did another seminar on financial reports. My friend, Dr. David Norris. They're all three Maxwellian leaders in the healthcare space. And Dr. Christopher Burton yesterday released his second book on physician burnout. And so it's just absolutely huge to see the impact. And I am also, just so that you know, Samir, I am born and married to medicine. So
Nice.
This is a near and dear to my heart. And to Bonnie's point, we need leadership in the healthcare space because we got VUCA all over the place in healthcare. And we've got really good people for the most part, really, really amazing, hardworking, good people. And what I love about Samir's talk is with enough humility as an engineer turned physician, who is actually, that's what my father is, an engineer turned family doctor as well. And I just love the way that you humbly approached it, but also boldly approached it. And it's just what we're hearing. So I'm going to be really looking forward to this interview. Again, Isabelle, Bonnie, any final words before I escort you back to the green room?
Good luck. We can't wait to hear.
All right,
Bonnie,
guys. Thanks for sticking around. It's so good when people are able to stick around. We'll walk you back. And Samir, last but not least here today, actually, I'm going to do this. I'm going to walk you back, Samir, because you've got to be on my I got to be on the left side for some reason. I've just got this strange thing. All right, now you're on the right side. I'm on the left side. We got your little name tag right there. You are properly adjusted. You look great right there. Okay, so here we go. Let's see here. Excuse me. All right. Here's the bio. Samir Sood strives exhaustively for health, happiness, and truth. He works with patients and systems, each informing his efforts with the other. He's involved with hospitals, startups, policy, and community organizations to create comprehensive, meaningful solutions. And if it's okay, can I tell them you are a second-year medical resident at Duke? Is that okay?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I think so. You actually just say second-year medical resident. Let's just do that.
Okay, yeah.
Family medicine.
All right. Yeah, if you had any extra talking time, I'd connect you with my dad because he's got like the identical. I mean, he was electrical engineering and now family medicine since 79, actually.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Since 79. Well, what's even cooler is I've got my mug in the Temple Medical School yearbook for 1976 because I was just born. So I made it. Nice. all the work that you had to put in to get your face in the medical yearbook, I just did it by being born, which is probably why I never went down that path.
Nice.
So yeah, when my wife actually was there when we were dating, and I was like, she went and she vetted me. She actually found me in there, and she was like, well, you checked out. Found you in there.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So anyway, hey, thanks so much. This is like the most precious gold in the world. Your first day off in probably 2 months or something. So you're hanging out with us. I really appreciate it. We're going to jump right into things. Any question for me?
No. How long do you think it'll go for?
Oh, we'll keep it about 15, 20 minutes. So
perfect.
Yeah. And then we got your LinkedIn, we got your LinkedIn right there. No website or anything like that. Just LinkedIn.
No, it's fine.
Okay. That works. All right. Well, we are live in 3, 2. We are live with Samir Sood. Samir, are you ready to talk?
Let's do it.
Dr. Samir Sood is a second-year medical resident in family medicine. He strives exhaustively for health, happiness, and truth. He works with patients and systems, each informing his efforts with the other. Samir is involved with hospitals, startups, policy, and community organizations to create comprehensive, meaningful solutions. Samir Sood, welcome to the talk.
Thank you for having me, Nathan. It's good to be here.
Your talk is called I Am Killing My Mind to to save a life. And I love this because you are like a very close family member. You are an engineer turned physician. And I loved what you were talking about in your talk because you used your engineering part of your background to really evaluate this classroom-centric learning that we're still stuck in almost 2020, almost the year 2020, we are still stuck in a classroom industrial age model that is really a couple of 100 years in the past. I thought you had really cogent solutions. I thought you had an adequate amount of humility being still a student of the process. But I also love what you had been doing with Rowan University to develop some systems where people could kind of figure out better ways and propose some alternative solutions. So please, Samir, take us behind the talk.
Yeah, absolutely. Appreciate the introduction. Yeah, I think first and foremost, like engineering is just who I am. It's how I've always been. And knowing that, I went to Rutgers University, 4-year biomedical engineering degree, was looking at PhD programs. And at some point my senior year, just decided to go into medicine, though the prior 4 years, I hated that idea just because I knew it was fact memorizing and it just wasn't what I want. I wanted to create.
But you went in there anyway. That's amazing to me. What tipped the scales?
Sort of this existential crisis senior year, being like, there's nothing else I want to work for besides people and like humanity, I guess. And I spent a couple years in a lab in school building like synthetic vascular grafts, as I mentioned in the talk. And while it was great and I loved it, I just wanted to apply that directly to humans, I guess. And medicine just seemed like the way to directly do that. I think I knew there'd be some frustration, but I think I'd be solving the problem of people, and therefore I'd be happy and fine. But just really quickly going into medical school, it was the opposite in a way. It was just like, wow, this is how we're solving problems. We're just applying instructions that are made for everyone with trials based on 1,000 people to individuals directly that we're seeing for the first time. There's not too much tailoring of treatment, and just the ability to create like I loved to do wasn't really present, especially not in med school, and really not now in residency either, 4 years later. And so I think in med school, again, being that engineer or creator, I'd always been doing little things, even as a kid, starting things, building products, selling it, whatever I could do to make a quick buck here and there. But in med school, it was like, all right, here's my chance to in fact, not my chance. I had to, in order to get by, do something where I could create, where I could feel like I was solving, because I just didn't agree with what I was doing day to day. I could do it, and I did it, and I passed the tests and all that stuff, but I just needed to experiment or trial or build something that felt like I was actually solving the root cause problems.
So, obviously you completed medical school, your second year residency, you survived your first year, that crazy first year of residency where what a huge shock. And you're still finding kind of the classroom piece, a lot of the same frustrations. You haven't quit, you haven't dropped out, you haven't changed course. That leads me to suspect that you're in this really, Samir, for the long haul and perhaps to innovate from the other side. Am I kind of onto something, or what are your goals from here?
Yeah, I'll say at med school, it took 5 years. I took a year off between third and fourth year. That was kind of my respite to fully dive into the change space and the system space of healthcare. That's where I did I worked for a startup called Accolade. They were kind of an adolescent startup at the time, telephonic health assistants, and just got to see what primary care or healthcare could look like from a non-clinical standpoint. Also, I did a fellowship up at Harvard, Insight Health. I was a primary care innovation fellowship, and from that came a digital health startup called Sherbet. And then from that, it was just like, how do we create a digital technology, a platform, and how could something like that influence health and health outcomes, and just exploring that. So it was a really good study of non-clinical healthcare progress, and how to influence from that standpoint, taking my expertise as a medical student at the time and applying it to companies or the private sector doing interesting work. So that was med school. And I think I got my fix and was like, okay, there's a place for a healthcare practitioner in this change space. And in fact, I was a third year med student. That's how much education I finished at the time. but my opinions were really respected and, in fact, necessary, it seemed, for some of these tech developments or clinical operations at Accolade at the time. So that was very cool to see. And then the decision point, fourth year med school, do I go to residency or not, came down to the fact of, I guess, what do I want to be and do, and what kind of person do I want to be when I do it? And I want to be someone who has experienced and fully understands the problems. I think as now a student of design thinking, like I want to understand the foundational needs as much as possible. And the only way to really do that is to go through it, to go through that first year and 80-hour work weeks, sleepless nights, et cetera, and see the patients across every sector of healthcare. And that's why I love family medicine, because I just came off of my OB month delivering babies, and I did pediatrics, seeing newborns and kids, and then adult medicine, cardiology, surgery, kind of all these fields across every aspect of healthcare. And specifically, my program is big into like public health and population health. So on top of that, I get to cross section with public health departments and community organizations, and just see the entire spectrum from beginning to end, from the hospital to the community, where health lies, where disease is, where it starts and stops from. And I think that has really and will continue to inform my career when I move forward and go back to the change space and back to influencing startups and policy and all that kind of stuff.
Well, I love this, Samir, because what I'm hearing is, as one systems person to another, I used to teach instructional systems design, so I'm aware of the whole 360-degree thinking and how it's so important to do that. You seem like you're fashioning yourself to be a bit of a medical renaissance man. I know there's really no such thing, that the knowledge that we have. There is no true Renaissance man. There's no field that any one person can really completely understand. But it seems like you're covering so many bases. My question for you: what do you think happens when maybe we can infuse a little bit more systems thinking awareness into the medical community, maybe even into the training of our healthcare professionals, as an efficiency mechanism or as some other game changer? Do you think that it might be as simple as introducing that awareness, cramming that, or maybe taking something out, maybe some of these facts, figures, and little memory techniques, and give them some real thinking tools instead? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that was my struggle and an attempt to see in medical school. I think Synapse, that organization I started, was, what happens when we do expose medical students to this way of thinking, of how to think and how to solve, versus just doing what is told to us and applying it over and over and over again. I found a lot of futility, unfortunately. It was really difficult the system's so set up the way it is, and every test is just about facts and figures, and to reverse that and to enter into this other realm of thinking with extrapolation and deriving and all that kind of stuff was very difficult. Not that I'm giving up on it by any means, but I think as a student in med school, I attempted in multiple ways, with and bringing engineers to the table, bringing medical students to the engineering table. And I found some successes there, but I think largely it was a very difficult uphill battle, because the system is so set in this one singular way. But I do think that, we're getting to a point in healthcare where it's just not working. The costs are too high, the GDP, it's too much of the GDP. Outcomes are not that great. People are still getting sicker, and we have to start questioning our methods. So at some point, come hell or high water, like, we need to do this. Like, it's happening, and it's asking us to start to think differently, whether or not we know it yet. So I do think there's value in doctors or healthcare providers. I think it's not just doctors at this point, but healthcare providers really questioning the system. And when they all have complaints, they all know, oh, things should be this way. If only that we could do something like this. It's like, well, what are the tools and the how to actually make that happen? And actually, I think it's an educational process that starts kind of in K through 12. And I think my future career will somehow go back to education at the basic level, because that's the way to think of how to solve rather than what to do and following instructions. I think that's what makes us humans and makes us great, is we're able to extrapolate and create, versus just do what we're told. And that starts very early on. So even still, I mean, while I try to, in residency on the wards, talk in that way and to other residents, it's hard for them to see it. And I think we're all very like, focused on the day-to-day, because we have to be. It's residency and it asks a lot of us. But I think post-residency, that's what I will go back to, and trying to teach that systems way of thinking to providers.
It's funny to think that just introducing systems thinking could be disruptive, but I mean, that's, medicine. I mean, we're supportive of medicine. We're supportive of doctors. There's a whole, movement of everybody's an expert, and, this causes that, and all kinds of pop self-diagnoses and celebrity doctors and Dr. Google, and there's all of this stuff going on right now. And I see you, Samir, not obviously not on that side, but you're on this other side saying, come on, healthcare, I want to help you. Let's introduce some systems thinking. Let's make some sense out of the chaos of why we're getting such horrible and unacceptable results, and people are revolting, whether that's through self-diagnosing and doing all these different things. I see you as a really positive, disruptor type person, without trying to be positive rather than disruptive for disruption's sake. My question to you, I love that. I have pharmacists on here, I have physicians on here, I have people who are really highly trained, very busy people in their own normally very, very siloed world. So you don't need to be giving a TED Talk, Samir. You don't need to be on this podcast. You don't need to be stepping every chance you get back out into the real world and trying to make it better. My question for you is, what's your advice to other really highly trained people who know the lingo and don't need to venture out onto a TEDx stage, but do so or want to do so in order to touch other people? How has that expanded your influence and your buy-in and your awareness with normal people out there that, like me, that don't understand medical speak, as well as perhaps your peers who see that you've done some things outside of the box, for a good cause? What would you say to other people that really it's going to be costly for them to unjargon themselves, step out on a TED Talk, do the public speaking? What would you say? Was it worth it for you?
Yeah, this has been one of the most rewarding pathways I've ever done. I don't think I went into med school being like, oh yeah, I'll get all these opportunities and I'll have a platform to stand on. It kind of unfolded itself that way. And for some reason, I'm not sure, but my eyes were open to these opportunities. And I love talking to cool people who are doing awesome things and they're passionate about what they do. And I've just found a lot of synergy between that in doing so. And able to leverage myself, my education in different ways than just prescriptions and applying them in the hospital kind of thing. I've found, time and time again, there's just so much value in sharing these opinions and perspectives. We see health, we see disease on the foundational level, and that is great in the hospital, but also great in the world, the real world that needs it. For context, I'm sitting in a car right now because on this day off, I'm actually heading over to Charlotte, North Carolina, a couple hour drive away, to meet with this education company, this medical education company that for
on
exam
your day
prep.
off. Like, you don't have a day off as a second year resident for a very long time. So, wow.
Yeah. And it's just how I've always been. Any opportunity I've gotten, I've gone to a conference, I've gone to TED Med, I've given a TED Talk, writing my TED speech on my OB-GYN rotation in med school, just multitasking probably to a fault, honestly.
Writing your TED Talk on an OB-GYN rotation. That's a new, I haven't heard that one before, Samir.
don't tell the TEDx organizer that, but
well, don't tell you're attending that, I guess. But oh my gosh,
yeah. But yeah, so it's been rewarding, and I think it's also just giving me perspectives I can bring back to the hospital. That's the thing. I go out into the real world, I see the real problems, or at least attempt to. I'm not going to claim that I know everything, but yeah, I think interacting with those who are trying to influence healthcare from the outside is so important, because then in the hospital, we get Epic gets thrown at us, technology gets thrown at us. Patients come in with things that we haven't seen because we're just so tunnel visions in what we do. And I think it makes me sad when I see medical students who from high school knew they wanted to go into medicine, and for the next from high school until now, they haven't seen anything else. They haven't seen what an office looks like, or what a desk job might feel like. and just kind of what else is out there. I don't know. I think all those perspectives in the real world really inform where our patients come from, and some of the problems in healthcare, and then the value in influencing or having a shot to influence some of those changes that are coming our way, whether we like it or not. AI is coming, like cognitive machine learning is coming, and technology is coming. Digital health is out there, and it's facing us. Health IT is budding, and we don't have a say in that. So the change makers right now are not the physicians, the providers, the ones who are using the technology. They're business people, engineers, and those who don't have the ground level perspectives that we do.
Yeah, and that's the piece that kind of rubs me a little bit, just because of I'm so connected to healthcare, and I've been hearing this all my life, even when in the Clinton administration, when the talk about government medicine was happening and everything else. That is the piece that bothers me, is that the people that have studied the most. I have a family member just, studied and redid boards again. And you see, my whole life, I have seen family members and loved ones studying for the boards after seeing, a day of 30 or 40 patients at work, going home and studying until 2 or 3 in the morning every day for, better part of a year in some case. And then, where we're at in the public, in the popular culture, in the Dr. Oz culture of celebrity doctors and oversimplified, overgeneralized things, just really bothers me. So when I see people like Dr. Samir here, who are, taking the non-existent time that they have, making a difference, fighting to stay outside of the silo that he has to be in for another couple of years here, it's really, really powerful. So we're going to pivot over to the Blitz round in just a moment with Dr. Samir Sood. I'm going to ask just a couple of questions about the preparation and performance of his talk in just a moment. And we're back with the Blitz round with Samir Sood. Samir's talk is called "I Am Killing My Mind to Save a Life." We are in the Blitz round. Samir, were you invited to speak or did you apply?
I think I was invited to speak. So the organizer, I had written an article for him called "The Good, the Bad, the Ugly of Medical School" a couple months before that, just kind of explaining my take on it. And he liked the article and was like, "You should come talk at this event I'm organizing." And of course, I can't say no. So I did.
Yeah. Well, what's your advice to other physicians, really, really, really busy people that want to make an impact in a TED Talk? They know the format's different. Maybe they're tempted to just do their normal physician workshop game. It's not the same thing. What would you say to them, given the understanding of how much time it takes to prepare?
Yeah, I mean, I think I was 23 or so at the time. I think that was one of the most uncomfortable experiences of my life. Like, way not prepared for that. Never done anything like that before. And so it was the acknowledgement that I think having influence, sharing my story, having an opportunity like that is worth that discomfort. And I think that's a very personal question that everyone should ask themselves. I think it's easy to do what's comfortable, meaning maybe this isn't that comfortable, but staying in the hospital, kind of doing the day-to-day over and over again, that's fine. That's difficult work and very necessary work. But I think if someone wants to have that influence outside of their day-to-day, it's really asking that question of, is this something I want to take on? And it's not, that was a gift. I didn't seek it out necessarily. And I probably got lucky, but I think it's a matter of doing things to reduce the chances that you have to rely on luck. So I'm constantly networking, constantly talking to people, sharing my experiences and my word, via things like this, and whatever comes from it. Those opportunities are gifts, and I choose to take them if I can. And I think it's just a matter of starting to get yourself out there, starting to talk to others who are also influencers, and again, passionate people, and just connecting, making this world a little bit smaller, if you care to do so.
I don't usually ask this question, but I'd love to think, again, I keep referring to you. You go outside the silo. You could have lived inside the silo, all of that. You gave this TEDx talk. How often do you refer back to that? How often do maybe some colleagues maybe find that or see that? And can you tell that gives you additional it changes the game, changes the dynamic, makes you more influential, listened to, where otherwise you probably would just be told to get with the program or follow the system or something like that?
Yeah, it's been great, actually. I sort of secretly love when people just Google me and then find it, and they mention it and they just start expressing their opinions about it, because I really can't, unfortunately, in the day-to-day in my job, go around talking like this.
You can't. If you want to stay doing what you're doing at the medical school and residency, not it's kind of like zip the lip.
Exactly. And it's not because what I'm saying is horrible or anything. There's not a place for it. This kind of discussion, this kind of discourse.
It's disruptive, and you've got people who are very, very hardworking, very, very intelligent, just like you, very, very, very focused, and there's no bandwidth or margin to just creatively reevaluate or recreate options. And so it's very threatening, and we've got good people who are really stretched to the limit. And so this really is disruptive, even though you're not really trying to be that way. So that's great. They find your TED Talk and they get to hear your ideas that way. You'd never be able to express those ideas.
Exactly. No, that's exactly, you hit the nail on the head perfectly. No, it's a way I can, my other persona, it represents me really well. And if that's ripe for it, I can, refer people to it. If I'm trying to do these outside of healthcare opportunities, it just shows them that, I'm a Doctor Who does some stuff like this, not Doctor Who, but a doctor who speaks these other things, these other languages, and has these other thoughts. And it's almost a resume at times too. It just adds value that I don't necessarily have to tell them about over and over again. So it's been really good, well worthwhile to have that online presence. I think videos, pitches, other things I've done, that's all kind of on there if anyone looks for it. So it's just great to have those to refer to as my non-clinical resume.
Well, we've been enjoying this Blitz round with Dr. Samir Sood. His talk is called "I Am Killing My Mind to Save a Life." It's a great title. You can go to our show notes page at bethetalk.com and check that out. If you have someone who is in healthcare who wants some encouragement that there are people who are thinking about the epic, big, writing on the wall 500-pound gorillas that are out there, I think it'll be really encouraging for them if you share his talk with them. We will also have a link so that you can link in with Samir on his LinkedIn page. And we're going to be right back with Dr. Samir Sood in just a moment for the final word of advice. And we're back with Samir Sood. It's time for the final word of advice.
All right, final word of advice. Okay. So I think first and foremost, everyone should really ask themselves the hard question, and that really is just why they do what they do. It's I think what I did my senior year of college, like I said, that brought me out of biomedical engineering to medicine. And I've did my best to follow my heart ever since. Really, what I'm good at, what I love, where do I want to make the impact? What do I care about in this world? And all of that, and then how to link that together. And I think that those three things have really helped me and made it easy to decide what's worthwhile doing. So yes, going to residency because I want to have the ground level knowledge base, and I want to share that influence post residency in a world that needs to be informed by those who experienced the ground level stuff. And then opportunities like the TED Talk and this podcast, I think these are easy yeses, despite they might be uncomfortable or difficult or hard to do on a day off. But of course, this goes along with the overall mission, the personal mission. So I think, and Simon Sinek of finding your why and all that, it's so true. And I'm just echoing things that have been said over and over again, and I can't restate them or say them more. So I think really finding your why and doing every opportunity and to actualize that, you'll be a happier person. I love what I do. I love what I do all the time because not only do I get to help people in the hospital and work with really smart people and feel that I'm making an impact in that realm, I get to do it on the outside also. And there was no school for that. There was no pathway set to do that. But I think that exploration and opportunity to explore because I'm someone who has a degree behind my name, fine. But it's just been such a gift every single day. And I think the TED Talk is just one example of how I've gotten to experience that. And I only wish that for others as well.
Samir Sood, thank you so much for carving out time of your busy day off and sharing your wisdom with Talk Universe today.
It's been a pleasure, Nathan. Thank you so much for having me.
All right, that's a wrap. Isabelle is still watching, so we're going to bring her back here. Wasn't that tremendous?
Am I back in? Yes.
Yeah, you're
yes,
back in.
And I heard the magical word that I normally hear, and you said, I just can't say no. I know a talk you should watch.
That's Isabelle's talk. It's all about saying no for the right reasons, though. But you didn't want to say no to this.
It's about saying no to the things you don't want, so you have more time and energy for the things that you do want.
Very cool.
I love it. Hey, everybody. So take your finger, wiggle it over the share button so that we can share Isabelle's talk, Samir's talk, all the other amazing talks that we had this morning. I think we had 8 lined up. I think 7 were able to make it, which is a better than normal track record today. We're going to go offline, and thank you so much for joining. Thank you so much for commenting and sharing. Take care, everybody.
See ya.
Take care. Bye-bye.